Chapter 17:10. Duh. Her light footsteps sounded like butterflies stepping on brittle leaves, exceptionally agile. The bronze overlord killed the gold overlord with a single strike. This is unheard of. Whose disciple are you? The ethereal and beautiful voice floated over, like the sound of nature. Su Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he turned around to look. It was an elegant, middle-aged woman in a beautiful pleated dress. She looked to be in her early 30s, elegant beyond compare, and had a refined temperament. At first glance, it was like seeing Xia Jingyu for the first time. That quiet and calm temperament was a rare sight. There was also a peculiar fragrance of plants that lingered around her. What a beautiful and refined woman. As he stared at her, the space between Su Yu's brows twitched slightly, and he felt slightly uneasy. "May I ask who you are?" Su Yu asked. The woman pursed her lips and smiled elegantly. Purple Dream. Just like her name, she was a beautiful woman who was as unreal as a dream. However, Su Yu's heart became much more serious, and he said indifferently, "I wonder what advice does the Emperor have for stopping me?" Purple Dream, Smoky Dream smiled. "You know me?" Shaking his head, Su Yu said, "I don't know her, but there's only one woman in the sea of constellations who can make me feel fear from the bottom of my heart. She is the Purple Dream Empress." She was actually one of the 3 famous divine sovereigns of the Sea of Constellations, the Purple Dream Sovereign. The Sea of Constellations was ruled by 3 major forces: the sovereign snow dragon of the Shui Nation in the North region, the sovereign slaughter of the Southern Sea, and the sovereign Purple Dream of the Eastern Sea. There were countless rumors regarding the Purple Dream Empress. The most well-known rumor was her origin. It was a divine bamboo that had grown by absorbing the Daelord's comprehension. A divine ruler of heaven and earth was born in the divine bamboo. She called herself the Purple Dream Empress. The Purple Dream's sovereign exuded an otherworldly aura as he said, "There's no need to be nervous. I'm just passing by and was attracted by you." Attraction? Su Yu's heart jumped. Nothing good would come out of anything that had anything to do with the divine warriors of heaven and earth. Su Yu probed, "I am a nameless junior. I wonder what I have that could attract the attention of a martial emperor." The Purple Dream Emperor examined Su Yu, and his gaze fixed on the 9-jade spiritual pearl on his arm. He then said, "You have an extremely special object on you, and it is extremely attractive to all of us who have achieved the path of plants. Even I am no exception to this." Su Yu's heart sank. As expected, she had sensed the supreme, growing soil. That was Su Yu's most precious treasure. A gentleman doesn't take someone else's love. "Don't be nervous. I won't force you." The Purple Dream Sovereign smiled lightly, and a purple bamboo leaf appeared in his palm. He said, "If you've thought it through one day, you can use this leaf to contact me. I'll give you something in exchange for something I can give you." "Oh." Su Yu was extremely surprised. One of the 3 legendary sovereigns, the Purple Dream Sovereign, was actually so easy to talk to. However, she was a plant that attained the Tao, and she was born from the comprehension of a Tao Lord. It could be said that she was born while the Grand Tao revolved around her. His heart was filled with the vast nature of the great Tao of heaven and earth. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu extended his hand and took the leaf. When Su Yu touched the leaf, he accidentally touched the Purple Dream Divine Warrior's palm. Soft, light, and comfortable to the touch. Su Yu did not care, and he withdrew his hand after clamping the leaf. "Wait!" Unexpectedly, the Purple Dream Divine Emperor's slender hand suddenly flipped over and grabbed Su Yu's hand. Su Yu's expression changed slightly. Is she going to go back on her word? The Purple Dream Divine Warrior's calm and elegant face was covered by a look of shock. The aura of a holy mortal body. Su Yu was stunned. Was a holy mortal body. The Purple Dream Divine Warrior noticed his confusion, and she asked, "You don't have a holy mortal body?" Su Yu replied calmly, "I have a mortal body, and I really don't have a holy mortal body." She slowly let go of Su Yu's hand and looked into the distance. She then said, "A year ago, I sensed a Tao God descending upon the world. All the Taoists greeted him respectfully. I speculated that it was a holy mortal body that was born in this world, so I came here to look for it. She looked at Suyu and said, "The aura of the creation rules remains in your palm. Even if you don't have a holy mortal body, you must have come into contact with it." Suyu was greatly shocked. He did not know anything about a holy mortal body, but he knew about Tao gods. He was the Tao god that had become a god in all the Taos. He was also the holy mortal body that the Purple Dream Divine Warrior had mentioned. Fortunately, he did not know what a holy mortal body was. His eyes were confused, and the Purple Dream Divine Warrior had misunderstood that Suyu did not have a holy mortal body. Suyu hid his confusion on his face, and at the same time, he secretly suppressed his restless emotions to prevent the Divine Warrior from noticing. "What is a Tao God, and what is a holy mortal body?" Suyu asked, pretending to be curious. The Purple Dream Divine Warrior said, "You don't need to know about these for now. However, can you tell me if you have come into contact with any special people recently?" She had already determined that Suyu, who knew nothing about the holy mortal body, was not the holy mortal body that she was looking for, but someone who had come into contact with the holy mortal body. Suyu said, "I have come into contact with many people recently, especially the ancient dream altar. I have come into contact with guests from all over the world. Most of them are powerful, and there are many talented guests. To me, they're all special people. I really can't describe what you are looking for." The Purple Dream Divine Warrior pondered. "The ancient dream altar is held once every 100 years, and many geniuses are born. I heard that there are a few talented people among the younger generation. Could the holy mortal body be among them?" Suyu carefully withdrew his hand and said, "I won't disturb you anymore. I will take my leave." "Hold on." The Purple Dream Divine Warrior grabbed Suyu's hand again and said, "I need you to stay by my side for some time. There's a remnant aura of the holy mortal body on your palm. If you come into contact with the holy mortal body, this aura will change. It will be easier for me to identify the holy mortal body," the Purple Dream Divine Warrior said. "Therefore, I will have to trouble you for now. Accompany me to the Imperial City. I want to come into contact with those geniuses and find the holy mortal body among them." Suyu groaned inwardly. He couldn't even escape in time, yet he had to go back. After thinking for a moment, Suyu said, "Elder, to tell you the truth, I was lucky enough to enter the second level of the pavilion in the ancient dream altar. I was misinformed by outsiders that I had obtained the Pathmaster Sarara of the Faceless Buddha. If I go back, there will be endless trouble. I'm afraid that not only will I not be able to share your burden, but I will also cause more trouble for you." The Purple Dream Divine Warrior looked at Suyu in surprise. "You actually managed to reach the top of the second level of the pavilion. I heard that the current Empress Ziwei, Shui Guanyin, and the Merciless Blade Emperor were all outstanding talents. It was really beyond my expectations that you could eliminate them." However, the Purple Dream Divine Warrior smiled calmly. "They really misinformed me. Apart from a suppressed evil corpse in the second level of the pavilion, there was no Pathmaster's Buddha-Sarara at all. The real Pathmaster's Buddha-Sarara disappeared a long time ago." Suyu's eyes narrowed, and he asked in surprise, "How did you know about the situation in the second level?" Since the beginning of time, he was the first living being to reach the second level of the pavilion. The Purple Dream Divine Warrior smiled gracefully. "When I was still a small bamboo, I heard the Pathmaster talking about it." Suyu suddenly understood. She had grown up in the Pathmaster's meditation. So, it wasn't strange for her to occasionally hear the Pathmaster talk about the secrets of the Pathmasters. "Let's go. From now on, you belong to me. No one can do anything to you," the Purple Dream Divine Warrior said calmly. She had an elegant and calm demeanor. Suyu was still reluctant to leave. He really didn't want to go back. However, he understood that there was a limit to a person's patience, even if it was the Purple Dream Divine Warrior. If he really angered her, she would use forceful methods, and Suyu would be the one to suffer. "All right," Suyu felt helpless. The Purple Dream Divine Warrior said, "Don't worry. I won't let you work for nothing. I will repay you after the matter is done." A repayment from the Divine Warrior of Heaven and Earth? Suyu's mood improved a little, and he nodded reluctantly. All right then. I hope that you can find the sacred mortal body as soon as possible. He was speechless. The sacred mortal body is already in your hands. So where can I find it? Let's go then. The purple dream divine warrior held Su Yu's hand, and with a single step, they traversed billions of miles. When they reappeared, they were in front of the chain bridge. The purple dream divine warrior looked at the mysterious ice crystal lake below and said calmly, "The ancient corpse faction is full of capable people. They have chosen such a blessed land as the faction's foundation." The ancient corpse faction? Su Yu thought of a certain mysterious ice cave, where many ice coffins were sealed. He was about to ask about it when the purple dream divine warrior seemed to sense something. She said, "You seem to be in trouble." Following her gaze, Su Yu saw two figures rapidly approaching from the other end of the chain bridge. One was the heartless saber emperor, and the other was the murderous limitless sword saint. They were staring at Su Yu coldly. Anyone could tell that they had come for Su Yu. Su Yu's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. The limitless sword saint was an outstanding youth of the previous generation, and his cultivation had reached the mysterious crystal overlord level. Su Yu was not afraid of fighting with someone of such a level. The purple dream divine warrior said, "Since you are one of my people, there is no need for you to worry unnecessarily." She was implying that she would become Su Yu's strong support. Su Yu heaved a sigh of relief. Although he was a little reluctant to come back, it felt good to have a super fighter supporting him. "Su Yu, I thought you had run away with your tail between your legs. I didn't expect you to stay here and wait for death." The heartless saber emperor stepped forward and reprimanded him on behalf of his brother. Su Yu did not even look at him. He said, "You have lost to me. Don't talk. You are really arrogant. You still dare to be stubborn even when you are about to die." The heartless saber emperor laughed sinisterly. "This is not the ancient dream altar. If you die, you die. There is no power that will protect you." Su Yu said calmly, "Weren't you the one who died once?" The heartless saber emperor was touched. He said angrily, "Brother, Su Yu is really a piece of sh*t. Kill him. We have left the northern Xuan nation's palace. There is no harm in killing him." The limitless sword saint did not need him to say anything. He stared at Su Yu and said coldly, "Do you know why you have to die?" Su Yu shrugged. "Because I made you a cuckold? You are really a strange person. Do I have to poke at you in front of others?" Buffed. The otherworldly purple dream divine warrior could not help but let out a laugh. She had been wondering why the successor of the Southern Ocean killing emperor would provoke Su Yu. It was because of a woman. "You are courting death." The limitless sword saint was furious. He glared at the purple dream divine warrior behind Su Yu and said angrily, "And you, if you don't want to die, shut your mouth. If you laugh again, I will cut off your tongue." Chapter 17:11. The purple dream emperor's smile faded as she calmly said, "You are too vicious and annoying." Even if the emperor killer was present, he would not have the guts to cut off her tongue. As a divine warrior of heaven and earth, the purple dream emperor was born from the Pathmaster's comprehension. In a sense, she was inextricably linked to the Pathmaster. The emperor killer would not dare touch the purple dream emperor's finger even if he had 10 times the courage. After pausing, she glanced at Su Yu and laughed lightly. "You are the most comfortable to look at. Even if you want to kill someone, you have to give them a way out first." As a divine warrior of the path of plants, she liked kindness and hatred. When Su Yu had killed the 3 pursuers, he had not killed them immediately. Instead, he had warned them in advance and advised them to give up on killing. It was only when the 3 of them had attacked that Su Yu's killing intent was provoked. Such a way of doing things suited the purple dream emperor's taste. It was precisely because of this that she was willing to get close to Su Yu. Otherwise, with her personality, she would not have wanted to bring Su Yu along. In contrast to Su Yu, the limitless sword saint was extremely vicious, which she hated. The limitless sword saint sneered, "Bitch, I do not want to repeat myself. If you do not want to die, scram. This is none of your business." Shaking her head slightly, the purple dream emperor gently waved her wide sleeves. A mysterious power surged forth, easily sweeping the limitless sword saint and the heartless saber emperor to the side. The limitless sword saint's expression changed, his heart filled with shock. What kind of power could push him, the crystal overlord, away so easily? The heartless saber emperor's face turned pale as he said fearfully, "Is it a peak crystal overlord? Or could it be a half-step divine warrior?" The limitless sword saint's expression was extremely grave as he reiterated, "I am the limitless sword saint. You should have heard of my name. Give me some face and let go of this person." As the heir and son of the emperor killer of the South Sea, the limitless sword saint had the right to do so. "Even if your father came, I would not give him face, let alone a junior like you." The purple dream emperor frowned slightly, her eyes filled with disgust. "Stop pestering me. I do not like to fight." She then led Su Yu onto the chain, ignoring the brothers and entering the city. The limitless sword saint gripped his purple sword tightly as he stared at the back of the purple dream sovereign. His eyes were filled with killing intent, but he was afraid of the purple dream sovereign's strength and didn't dare to make a move himself. "Damn woman, how dare you be rude to this young master?" The limitless sword saint was extremely unwilling. Heartless Saber Monarch's eyes were also filled with hatred. If father was here, who would dare to bully us brothers? Out of the two brothers, one had been schemed against and eliminated, while the other had his woman stolen. The culprit was the same person. The most hateful thing was that the other party had the protection of a powerhouse and did not give them any face at all. Ever since they were born, only the two brothers had bullied others. No one had ever bullied them like this. "Big brother, we can't let Su Yu off. He actually dared to do such a thing to sister-in-law." Heartless Saber Emperor fanned the flames. It would be better to inform Imperial Father. The limitless sword saint's face darkened. Father has been busy with cultivation and has not come out for many years. Why would he rush over for such a small matter? Sha. Suddenly, a faintly discernible rustling sound entered his ears, as if the wind was blowing the yellow sand all over the sky. Within the sand, there was a dense killing intent. Looking up, deep chains of laws descended from the depths of the heaven and earth, surrounding an inconspicuous small black figure and rapidly approaching. The limitless sword saint and heartless saber monarch were stunned at the same time. Then their faces revealed an ecstatic expression. "Limitless, heartless, are you in trouble?" A loud voice fell into the ears of the two. Their conversation was heard by this person. The two of them went up together, surprised and happy. "Imperial Father, aren't you in seclusion? When did you come out, and why did you suddenly come to the Northern Xuan nation?" Their Imperial Father was only one person, the Emperor of the Southern Sea region, the Emperor Killer. Boom! The Emperor Killer's body was surrounded by chains of laws of slaughter and suddenly descended. The clouds in the sky changed drastically, shattering into countless pieces. The 10,000-year snow mountain under his feet could not withstand the might of the Emperor and instantly collapsed. The chains dispersed, and a bare-chested, broad-shouldered, majestic middle-aged man descended like an iron tower. He had a head full of blood-red hair, and around his neck was a bone chain woven from skulls. Each of the skulls was different in strength, from the weakest almighty to the mortal fairy, to the cave world venerable, to the peak overlord, and even a silver gray skull of a half-step emperor. These were the enemies of the Emperor Killer at every stage of his life. But without exception, they were all defeated by the Emperor Killer and were refined into a necklace. These skulls represented the Emperor Killer's life experience and also represented his powerful slaughter. Using slaughter as the path, using slaughter as the Emperor Killer's back was covered with the bones of others. The Emperor Killer had killed too many people in his life. Although he became the Emperor of Heaven and Earth, he was punished by Heaven and Earth, and his eyes were blind. No matter what kind of divine art or what kind of elixir, nothing could restore his eyes. He opened his empty, black eyes and said, "A day ago, when I was in seclusion, I received a message from the Star Pavilion's chief pavilion master. He has something important to discuss with me, and invited me to the Northern Xuan nation, so I rushed here." The Limitless Sword Saint was slightly surprised. The Star Pavilion's chief pavilion master? Wasn't it said that the legendary supreme martial artist had fought with the Emperor's corpse and was seriously injured and died? After all, he had not appeared for 30,000 years. Why did he suddenly appear, and even invited Father? The Emperor Killer sneered. How can that old monster die so easily? Even if the emperors of our 3 seas die, he might not die. He has been in seclusion for 30,000 years. So that's how it is. The Starry Pavilion's chief pavilion master suddenly appeared and even invited Father to have a discussion. The matter they are discussing must be something important. The Emperor Killer nodded and bit his head. He appeared in person, so it must be about that matter. What will come will come. I have prepared for 30,000 years, but I don't know if I can survive this catastrophe. He sighed deeply and did not continue. Instead, he looked at the two of them and sized up the ruthless Saber Emperor. He frowned slightly. Ancient Dream Altar, you have not made much progress. Hearing this, the ruthless Saber Emperor clenched his fists and said angrily, Father, it is all because of one person that I was eliminated in advance. Oh, is it that girl Ziwei or Shuiguanin? The Emperor Killer had a smile on his face. In the entire sea of constellations, there are only those two who can eliminate you. No, it is a kid called Suyu. The ruthless Saber Emperor said hatefully. The Emperor Killer was surprised. Suyu? I have never heard of him. Whose successor is he? To be able to eliminate you, he should not be a nobody. His background is mysterious and no one knows. But he was the one who caused me to be eliminated. The ruthless Saber Emperor said. The most hateful thing is that he did not take me seriously because he had an expert to rely on. Father, please help me. The Emperor Killer was silent for a moment. Ruthless, do you remember what I taught you? Do not blame your failure on the enemy's strength. Only a coward would think that way. You've really disappointed me. He stared at the ruthless Saber Emperor with hollow eyes. When you return to the South Sea, reflect on your mistakes for 1,000 years. The ruthless Saber Emperor did not expect this. He was initially dissatisfied, but when he saw the Emperor Killer's cold face, he shivered and quickly nodded. Yes, I know my mistake. I accept my punishment. The Emperor Killer turned to look at the Limitless Sword Saint. You are filled with evil energy, and your state of mind is not stable. Is there a problem? The Limitless Sword Saint's lips trembled, but he could not speak. The ruthless Saber Emperor rolled his eyes and gnashed his teeth. Father, it is still that kid called Suyu. He had no fear of forcing sister-in-law to do despicable things to him. The Emperor Killer's aura suddenly froze, and all the snowy mountains within a radius of 10 million miles collapsed. He looked at the Limitless Sword Saint and said, Limitless, is this true? The Limitless Sword Saint's heart was bleeding, and he could not bear the humiliation. I saw it with my own eyes. The Emperor Killer was silent. After a moment, he said in an apathetic tone, Eliminating my son is a fair competition. I will only praise him and not punish him. But humiliating my wife and daughter is unforgivable. Where is he? The Limitless Sword Saint said. He has been escorted into the Imperial City by his backer. The Imperial City? Great, I want to enter the Imperial City too. You're responsible for finding this person. Once you find him, inform me. The Emperor Killer said. I will first meet with that old man. In the Imperial City, the Purple Dream Emperor's crystalline eyes scanned the surroundings, sifting through suspicious people. After a moment, she shook her head. The sea of people is vast, and searching like this is like looking for a needle in a haystack. Where are those heaven rulers? The Crystal Palace, Suyu said. The Purple Dream Emperor nodded. Then I will go to the Crystal Palace. At that moment, the Purple Dream Emperor suddenly stopped in her tracks, raising her head to look at Song Ming, as if someone was talking to her. Her expression changed again and again, and her calm expression gradually turned serious. It was only after a long while that the conversation ended. She retracted her gaze, muttering in shock. That old man has come out of seclusion? Looks like something big has happened. She stopped in her tracks and said to Suyu, I have something to do, so I will leave first. Wait for me at the Crystal Palace." As she spoke, she took out a purple leaf and pressed it between Suyu's brows. The leaf entered Suyu's body and disappeared without a trace. "Don't leave the Imperial City. This leaf will show me your location, and I will be able to sense it no matter where you go." Suyu was speechless. "I am afraid that I will be silenced before you return." Who had the Path Master Buddha Saraira, was coveted by many influences. "Don't worry, this bamboo leaf is my original life item. If you are in danger, I will detect it immediately and appear immediately." Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. The Purple Dream Emperor immediately left in a hurry, as if something big had happened. Who was talking to her just now? Suyu thought to himself. After looking around cautiously, Suyu finally decided to return to the Crystal Palace. As the destruction of the ancient sacrificial altar came to an end, most of the guests had returned. The crowd in the Crystal Palace was like a tide. Suyu's appearance was immediately noticed. "Look! Oh my God! It's Suyu, whose whereabouts are unknown. He actually came back unscathed. Rumor has it that he entered the second floor. Doesn't that mean?" Many pairs of complicated eyes focused on Suyu. Suyu sneered to himself. There were so many people coveting him. A few bold silver overlords exchanged glances with each other, then slowly approached Suyu and surrounded him. The Path Master Buddha's Saraira was too tempting, and they could not suppress it. "Humph! I want to see who dares to covet the people of the Star Pavilion." A cold grunt was heard. A figure appeared in the Star Pavilion's mountain peak. It was none other than Mu Songhai. Wherever she passed, the crowd made way for her, afraid that they would be a step slower. To them, the Star Pavilion was a colossus that they did not even have the right to look up to. Mu Songhai walked in front of Suyu and said with relief, "You are still alive." Suyu then remembered that Mu Songhai had said that he would tell him about the origin of the black-gray stone after the ancient dream altar. However, Mu Songhai's expression turned serious, and he said something else. "Come, the Shadow Wind Cabinet Master wants to see you." Shadow Wind Cabinet Master? Suyu was confused. Bai Shuejian's death must be faced eventually. Mu Songhai said. Only then did Suyu come to a realization. Bai Shuejian belonged to the Red Leaf Pavilion, and the Red Leaf Pavilion was under the jurisdiction of the Shadow Wind Cabinet Master. Bai Shuejian's death was closely related to Suyu. It was normal for the Shadow Wind Cabinet Master to look for him after the incident. Don't worry, I've already informed Cabinet Master Hu in advance. He has specially rushed over from the Star Pavilion to deal with this matter. Mu Songhai said, even though you've left the Stellar Pavilion, you're still a member of our Sword Pavilion branch. Pavilion Master Hu won't sit idly by. If the Shadow Wind Pavilion Master wants to make things difficult for you, he'll have to get Pavilion Master Hu's permission first. So he was a little moved. Which of the Star Pavilion's 9 great Pavilion Masters was not a high-ranking person? It was not easy for them to come all the way here for him, a person who had left the Star Pavilion. I have caused trouble for you. Let's go. There should be an explanation for this matter, Suyu said calmly. It could be seen that Suyu was missing, and the Shadow Wind Cabinet Master could only make things difficult for the Sword Pavilion. Unfortunately, Suyu had never had the habit of causing trouble for others. Mu Songhai walked in front, and Suyu followed. Suddenly, Mu Songhai said, This jade piece was left behind by you? Suyu said, Looks like you have noticed it. Cabinet Master, please report to the higher-ups. That underground space of ice always gives me an ominous feeling. Thump. Unexpectedly, Mu Songhai suddenly stopped. Her back was facing Suyu, and her expression could not be seen clearly. Only her grave voice was filled with a deep heaviness. It's the Ancient Corpse faction. Suyu froze. Ancient Corpse faction? What is that? Mu Songhai turned around, staring at Suyu. You are carrying one of the Ancient Corpse faction's 3 great corpse kings. But do you not know what kind of existence the Ancient Corpse faction is? Suyu's heart skipped a beat. 3 great corpse kings? Was he talking about the female corpse in the ice coffin? Mu Songhai said, In the past, the ancient star descended into the sea of constellations. Not long after, the 3 great corpse kings descended into the world, causing a catastrophe that affected the entire sea of constellations. The purple dream divine warrior, the emperor killer, the three great pavilion masters of the Star Pavilion, and even the chief pavilion master. Only then did the catastrophe stop. After that, the three great corpse kings retreated to the snowy North Sea, hiding underground and establishing the ancient corpse faction. The most terrifying of them, the Emperor Corpse, sealed itself in the incredible ice crystal lake, never to come out again. Looking at Su Yu, Mu Songhai said, "We are all very surprised that you became the representative of the ancient corpse faction to participate in the ancient dream altar." Su Yu was surprised, looking at the mountain peak where the coffin mark was carved. It turned out that the mark represented the ancient corpse faction. Su Yu could not explain that the female corpse had stuck to Su Yu of her own accord. Taking a breath, Su Yu said, "I am not a member of the ancient corpse faction." Mu Songhai smiled and said without hesitation, "I know, and I trust you." After many interactions, Mu Songhai trusted this young man from the bottom of his heart. So, it is time to tell you about the black-gray stone. Mu Songhai's eyes were full of determination. That stone is related to a secret that I have hidden for many years. Apart from the Star Pavilion's chief pavilion master and the three great pavilion masters, no one else knows about it. A secret that only the divine warriors of heaven and earth knew about? Su Yu's heart moved, and he said, "Is it the heavenly stem, starry disaster?" Mu Songhai was stunned, a little surprised. Soon after, he said helplessly, "You are really too smart. It seems like nothing in the world can hide from you." Nodding, Mu Songhai said, "That's right. It is the heavenly stem, starry disaster." Chapter 17:12. Back then, I went deep into the ancient star with the other 7 pavilion masters. In the end, I was the only one who came back alive. Do you know why? Mu Songhai recalled bitterly. Su Yu pondered. It was rumored that the 8 pavilion masters were trapped in the formation of the ancient star. Mu Songhai sacrificed the other 7 to escape. Cabinet Master, do you mean that there's more to it than meets the eye? Su Yu asked. Mu Songhai's eyes were filled with tears. He choked. Actually, we did not encounter a killing formation like the rumors say. What? Su Yu was surprised. Then why did the 8-star pavilion masters end up in such a miserable state? In that era, those who could become pavilion masters were all glazed crystal overlords. With the 8 of them working together, even a half-step divine warrior of heaven and earth would have to retreat. Why did 7 deaths and 1 injury cause a world-shaking heavenly stem star tribulation? Because, Mu Songhai recalled, even after 30,000 years, he still had lingering fears. His voice trembled. What we encountered was even more terrifying. I saw rows of ancient stone coffins in the ancient star. They densely covered the entire ancient star, and their number was incalculable. Mu Songhai said, in each ancient stone coffin, there was an ancient corpse. They came back to life, absorbing the corpse energy in the stone coffins to cultivate. Su Yu's heart jumped. Ancient corpses that came back to life, absorbing corpse energy to cultivate? Wasn't that what he saw in the incredible ice space? At the end of the row of stone coffins, I saw a huge altar, and on the altar, there were 10 abnormally huge ancient bronze coffins. Mu Songhai's expression was full of fear. In the ancient bronze coffins, there were 10 divine warrior-level corpse kings. 10? Su Yu's pupil shrank. Not to mention the other stone coffins, the 10 corpse kings and the ancient bronze coffins were enough to sweep away the glorious ancient god realm. Our arrival awakened one of the corpse kings, and it began to hunt us down. Mu Songhai cried. The 8 of us were no match for the corpse king. We didn't even have the chance to escape. In front of the divine warriors of heaven and earth, the glazed crystal overlord was just a small creature. So, how did Mu Songhai escape? Had they really sacrificed 7 of their companions to escape with their last breaths? The 8 of us were all suppressed by the corpse king. He sealed us in 8 stone coffins and wanted to turn us into the corpse clan. Mu Songhai said in a trembling voice. At the last moment, it was the Grand Pavilion Master who used the forbidden technique, Dream of the Horizon, to teleport me out of the ancient star through his dream. However, in front of the divine emperor of heaven and earth, the divine skill of the overlord is just a joke. The zombie king killed the grand cabinet master who was casting the skill with one palm and interrupted the forbidden skill. I teleported halfway and fell back to the ancient star, Mu Songhai said, but the other 6 pavilion masters also attacked at this time. They detonated their inner mansion gates one after another to continue the grand pavilion master's forbidden technique. That was how I was lucky enough to escape. However, all of them died tragically. Not a single one of them survived. Speaking of this, Mu Songhai's expression was sorrowful and full of guilt. Was this the truth? It was they who took the initiative to sacrifice themselves, not Mu Songhai, who was afraid of death and killed them. Looking at the old body that was constantly trembling, Suyu finally understood why everyone despised her, why the descendants of the 7 pavilion masters regarded her as an enemy, insulting and plotting against her, yet she remained indifferent. She neither refuted nor fought back, letting them do whatever they wanted. It turned out to be guilt. The 7 pavilion masters used their lives in exchange for her survival. She was carrying heavy shackles on her back. Even when she was maliciously harmed by the descendants of the 7 pavilion masters, she was unwilling to attack them. Staring at him deeply, Suyu sighed silently. He finally understood why the Star Pavilion still took in the cowardly Mu Songhai. It turned out that there was an unknown reason for everything. Not long after, that Corpse King awakened the other 2 Corpse Kings. The 3 great Corpse Kings appeared in the sea of constellations and set off a boundless calamity. Mu Songhai revealed the unknown truth. The ancient corpses came from that distant ancient star. It was because I returned alive and reported the news to the Star Pavilion that the Chief Pavilion Master, who was in deep seclusion, could come out in time and turn the tide, forcing the 3 great Corpse Kings to live in seclusion and even forcing the Emperor Corpse to seal itself. So you curiously asked, then your cultivation level is... A bitter smile crossed Mu Songhai's mouth. In the battle with the Corpse Clan, I found the Corpse King who killed the 7 Pavilion Masters. I wanted to avenge them, so I did not hesitate to damage my own cultivation level and cast a forbidden technique. Unfortunately, it was like a moth flying into a flame. The Corpse King destroyed my forbidden technique with a thought. If not for the Chief Pavilion Master's intervention, I would have long been a pile of white bones. So that was it. However, Mu Songhai had yet to explain the origin of the black-gray stone. As if he knew what Suyu was thinking, Mu Songhai continued, however, my forbidden technique was not a complete failure. At least I managed to cut off a finger from the Corpse King. Suyu's heart skipped a beat. You can't be saying that the black-gray stone is the Corpse King's finger? Mu Songhai said, haha, at first, I was the same as you. I did not believe it at all, and I did not believe that there was anything in this world that could enhance one's comprehension of cultivation techniques. But the truth is right in front of us. Suyu's heart trembled. The Corpse King's body was actually condensed from such a strange stone. In the past 30,000 years, I have studied it carefully and have barely found an explanation. Mu Songhai's eyes shone with a deep light. Life and death are maintained by the original rules of heaven and earth. No living creature can predict this rule. But how can the dead ancient corpses be resurrected? The answer lies in their bodies. In a body made of this special material, it is possible to avoid the rules of life and death and come back to life. Her explanation sounded incomprehensible to the average person. But Suyu, who had come into contact with the mother of all rules, the great path of absolute beginning, was exceptionally convinced. The dead could not be resurrected. This was the original rule of the absolute beginning realm, the great path of absolute beginning. Only 2 kinds of people could break the shackles of the great path of absolute beginning. One was like Suyu, who had mastered the profound meaning of life of the 8 great heavenly paths. The other was to avoid the detection of the great path of absolute beginning. Even for the former, if Suyu wanted to resurrect a person, there was a prerequisite, and that was that the person still had a breath left in the world. Otherwise, Suyu could not resurrect a person out of thin air. One could imagine that it was not easy for the latter to avoid the detection of the great path of absolute beginning. The body made of this nature-defying material could protect the dead from the detection of the great path of absolute beginning, and it had a certain amount of power. The question was, where did this material come from? Many ancient books had never recorded it. It couldn't have been born out of thin air, could it? Then, what about the ordinary corpse race? So you asked. Mu Songhai shook his head. No, the true corpse clan is born with the cultivation of the divine realm of heaven and earth, which is the corpse king level. The ancient corpses under their control are all creatures that they have captured and sealed. Just like the corpse king that year, he wanted to refine the 8 of us into his puppets. Their bodies are merely flesh and blood. Hearing this, so you could not help but gasp. They were born with the level of the corpse king? Wasn't the corpse race, too, terrifying? Suddenly, Su Yu's heart skipped a beat. Mu Songhai quickly told him about the origin of the black-gray stone and the secret of the ancient star. What was his purpose? After thinking for a while, Su Yu said, Cabinet Master, do you hope that I can enter the ancient star? If he wanted to get the black-gray stone, he could only enter the ancient star. Mu Songhai praised, It's easy to talk to you. You can understand without any guidance. She looked at the sky faintly, her chest full of bitterness. For 30,000 years, I have been looking for a suitable candidate, hoping that someone can go deep into the ancient star for me and bring back the bodies of the 7 of them. This is the greatest wish of my life. Su Yu was silent. The corpses of the 7 glazed, crystal overlords fell into the ancient star, where the corpse energy soared to the sky. Perhaps they would have already been transformed into ancient corpses? Bringing them back was not as simple as bringing them back. Even if there were no other obstacles, just subduing the 7 glazed crystal overlord ancient corpses would require supreme divine power. Cabinet Master, don't you think too highly of me? Su Yu smiled bitterly. The ancient star is a place of great danger. If I go there, I will never return. Mu Songhai said, You saved my life at the ancient dream altar, and the debt of gratitude has long been settled. How can I ask you to take the risk for me? Su Yu was slightly stunned. Then the Cabinet Master wants me to enter the ancient star because the corners of Mu Songhai's mouth curled up coldly. He said, I am giving you a great opportunity. Opportunity? What kind of opportunity could there be in a place of great danger and evil like the ancient star? The Star Pavilion began planning as early as 30,000 years ago in order to capture all the ancient corpses in the ancient star that have not yet awakened. Mu Songhai said, Now that 30,000 years have passed, the Chief Cabinet Master's injuries have recovered, and the divine technique has been successfully completed. You already have a capital to compete with the Emperor Corpse. It is time to eradicate the threat of the ancient corpses. Su Yu's heart was boiling. Cabinet Master, do you mean that the Star Pavilion will invade the ancient star? Mu Songhai clenched his fists, his eyes burning with flames. Not only the Star Pavilion, but the South Sea, the East Sea, and the North Sea will all be invited to participate in the extermination of the ancient star. At that time, all the strong men above the overlord level will be mobilized to participate in the battle of life and death. If you can set off with the army and seize the opportunity to seize the remains of some corpse kings, it will be an unimaginable great opportunity for your various divine techniques. It will be hundreds of times more powerful than the opportunity at the ancient dream altar. Mu Songhai's eyes were burning. In today's world, apart from the Star Pavilion's 3 great pavilion masters, the Chief Cabinet Master, and Mu Songhai, only Su Yu knew the secret of the Corpse King's bodies. He had come prepared to collect the Corpse King's remains without anyone else knowing. One could imagine how beneficial it would be. Back then, a simple small piece had allowed Su Yu to capture the inspiration of the Heaven Sun, gazing at air, to break through to the spirit-devouring realm. If he could get more, wouldn't any divine techniques be like water flowing into a canal? Thinking of this, Su Yu's emotions surged, and he was extremely tempted. However, Mu Songhai was a little hesitant. In addition to us, There may be overseas forces participating. Whether they know the secret of the Corpse King's bodies is unknown. Hearing this, Suyu is slightly shocked. Overseas forces? Are there any forces outside of the Sea of Constellations? The great beginning realm that he knew was limited to the Sea of Constellations. Chapter 17:13. Civilization? Suyu was no stranger to it. In the past, the Nine Dragons Valley God Realm civilization was destroyed by the sinful woman and the world annihilation dragon. According to the degree of prosperity, the civilizations in each region are different. Usually, they're divided according to the star system. For example, our Sea of Constellations civilization is. As Mu Songhai said this, he was a little embarrassed. Ahem, for example, our neighboring Great Yu dynasty is a 2-star civilization. There are many powerful forces there, and there are dozens of divine warriors of heaven and earth. There are even rumors that there is a triple crown king there. The so-called 3 crowns refer to the 3rd realm of the Emperor realm. The publicly acknowledged strongest person in the Sea of Constellations was the Stellar Pavilion's chief pavilion master. But he was only a double champion. His sovereign warriors of dozens of heavens and earth. There were even people at the level of the Triple Crown. Why was that kind of civilization more terrifying than Nine Dragons Valley's God Realm civilization? Could the civilization created by ancient god Nine Dragon be inferior to the Great Yu dynasty? Given ancient god Nine Dragon's supreme status, there was no way such a simple civilization could exist. There was definitely something fishy about it. Collecting his thoughts, Suyu asked curiously, if the Great Yu dynasty is a 2-star civilization, then our Sea of Constellations should be a 1-star civilization, right? Mu Songhai had a guilty conscience and said awkwardly, barely. Compared to a 1-star civilization, we are still a little lacking. How much more do I need? Suyu asked curiously. Mu Songhai laughed dryly. Probably just 1 star away. Suyu was stupefied. The civilization of the Sea of Constellations could not even be ranked among the stars. It belonged to a barbaric civilization. Ahem. All right, it's time to go down. Don't worry. With Minister Hu here, no one could do anything to you. Mu Songhai changed the subject. Suyu wasn't too worried. With the royal scepter dragon sword, even if the divine warriors of heaven and earth were present, they would be able to repel him with a single strike and escape easily. Moreover, he was now an important clue to the Purple Dream divine warrior. What could the Shadow Wind cabinet master do to Suyu? The Star Pavilion's juniors were summoned to the main hall by their elders. Firstly, it was to report their gains from the ancient dream altar. Secondly, it was to exchange experiences. Thirdly, he had to deal with some unexpected matters. For example, the deaths of Bai Xuejian, Shan Xiong, and Wei Lu. The exchange was hosted by the 9 pavilion heads. Even in the Star Pavilion's general pavilion, it was rare to see a large-scale meeting like this. Congratulations, great pavilion master. Out of the 10 invitations from the Star Pavilion, only the Swordlight Pavilion under your jurisdiction is left in the dust. The 9 pavilion chiefs exchanged greetings with each other. When the topic of the Blood Guanyin was brought up, the other 8 pavilion heads all sighed with different moods. In the end, among the 10 people who entered the central area, only 2 people from the Star Pavilion were qualified. They were Shui Guanyin and Lan Yu. Shui Guanyin was the only member of the Stellar Tower who obtained the Dao Master's insights. As for Lan Yu, she was automatically ignored by the pavilion leaders present. She herself was like a speck of dust, sitting inconspicuously among the subordinates of the Red Leaf Pavilion branch. She lowered her head in silence. Hearing everyone praise the Blood Guanyin, Lan Yu clenched her fists even tighter. She was only 1 step away from the loft. Just 1 step. A great regret filled his heart. Haha, don't overestimate this child. Her level of cultivation is far from enough, the Grand Duke cabinet leader said modestly. He looked at the Blood Guanyin with admiration. She had earned a great deal of face for him. Blood Guanyin said calmly, Seniors, you are flattering me. There are many people who are better than me, such as Empress Siwei or the former member of the Stellar Pavilion, Shui Yu. He is the one worthy of me studying. At the mention of Shui Yu, the atmosphere became a little strange. Many gazes looked at pavilion leader, who at the same time. He was the only pavilion leader who had received 2 invitation letters. But the important thing was that the one who became the first 5-spirit king in history was Shui Yu, who had abandoned him. This was a great irony. Indeed, the one who left everyone else in the dust should be the Sword Pavilion branch. An eccentric voice snorted. The other pavilion leaders had strange expressions, but they tacitly did not reply. Pavilion leader who took a long breath and said calmly, "The Shadow Wind Pavilion leader is also not bad. After all, Lanyu has also entered the central area of the Red Leaf Pavilion branch under your jurisdiction." Everyone was well aware of how Lanyu entered the central area with her level of cultivation. It was nothing more than selling her body, which was despicable. Pavilion leader who bringing up this point was really like a slap to the face. As if his sore spot had been poked, the eccentric Shadow Wind Pavilion leader immediately glared at him coldly. "The one with the surname who? Are you mocking me?" Pavilion leader who smiled and said nothing. When mocking others, he found joy in it. When being mocked, he immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. He was narrow-minded and made a joke of others. "If it wasn't for Shui Yu from your pavilion branch who killed by Xuejian and Shan Xiong, how could our Red Leaf Pavilion branch have fallen to such a state?" Ing Feng was furious. Pavilion leader who said, reasonably, Shan Xiong tried to kill the pavilion leader of his pavilion, so he deserved to die. As for Bai Xuejian, I believe everyone here saw how he died. Everyone nodded slightly. He died because of that young man named Huang Fulayang. "Pa!" Ing Feng slammed his palm on the table and said angrily, "The one with the surname who, don't even think about getting away with it today. Why, do you want to fight me?" Pavilion leader who was calm and composed. Ing Feng glared at him, but he really did not dare to fight pavilion leader who. This person was personally brought back from outside by a pavilion leader, and he had shown amazing business talent, so an exception was made to promote him to pavilion leader. Even though his cultivation level was ordinary and not even at the level of an overlord, his status might not be the lowest among the 9 pavilion leaders. "I'll settle the score with the one with the surname Shui," Ing Feng said fiercely. Pavilion leader who sneered. "That depends on whether you have the ability or not." The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became a little strange, and everyone fell silent. Settle the score with Suyu? It was not up to pavilion leader Ing Feng. After hesitating for a moment, pavilion leader Tai Gong said, "Pavilion leader Ing Feng, please calm down about Shui Yu." As pavilion leader who said, the deaths of Bai Xuejian and Shan Xiong were self-inflicted. You can't blame Shui Yu. His persuasion seemed sincere and earnest, but it actually contained a hint of threat. That's right. Not only did Shui Yu not do anything wrong, but he also brought great glory to the Star Pavilion. The 5-spirit king, the descendant of the faceless Buddha, TSK. How many years has it been since the Star Pavilion has produced such a stunning talent? Haha, that's right. We have the same thoughts. It's time to invite Shui Yu back. He was wronged and left the Star Pavilion in a fit of anger. Now that the 9 pavilion leaders are gathered here, it's time to settle this matter and invite him back. I agree too. He is a member of the Star Pavilion, and this cannot be changed. The 9 pavilion leaders discussed how to invite Suyu back with great interest, and their words were filled with excitement. Ing Feng was secretly furious. Invite Suyu back. Suyu had been away for such a long time. Why didn't anyone seek justice for him? Now that Suyu had been appointed by the legendary Pathmaster, his future potential was limitless. That was why they were scrambling to invite Suyu back. Ing Feng thought to himself. All of a sudden, he squinted his eyes and looked around at the few pavilion leaders present. He could not help but sneer. Ha ha ha, all of you have a good plan. Ing Feng laughed. Now, Shui Yu doesn't belong to the Star Pavilion in name, and he's not under pavilion leader whose jurisdiction. If we invite him back, who will be in charge? Of course, Suyu would be the one to decide. The few pavilion leaders smiled without saying a word. Their faces were inscrutable, tacitly agreeing with Ing Feng's argument. On the other hand, pavilion leader whose face was much more embarrassed. Among the 9 great pavilion leaders, his ranking was not high. His departure in the past was the result of his failure to protect Suyu. If Suyu came back and had to choose again, would he still choose him? The answer was no. The other pavilion leaders, except for pavilion leader Ing Feng, were all confident. It seemed that they had made sufficient preparations to persuade Suyu to join them. Everyone, this is inappropriate, isn't it? Since Shuyu left my place and came back, he should come back to me. That is in line with the rules. Pavilion leader who argued. Pavilion leader Great Duke said. Pavilion leader who? What you said is incorrect. According to what you said, Suyu was the deputy pavilion master of the Sword Pavilion when he left. Now that he has come back, are you telling me that he's going to take up the post of deputy pavilion master in the insignificant Sword Pavilion? With Suyu's current abilities, he was more than qualified to be a pavilion master, let alone a deputy pavilion master. Moreover, he would be one of the top pavilion masters. No, I didn't mean that. I meant, pavilion leader who explained hurriedly. The other pavilion leaders spoke up one after another. Pavilion leader who, don't be unreasonable. The Shuyu of today is different from the past. He is no longer someone you can train. Exactly, such a future human king should be taught by us, the senior pavilion leaders, personally. Everyone chimed in one after another, leaving cabinet leader Hu out of the conversation. Everyone was on the same page, and he could not argue back. Seeing this, Ing Feng felt relieved. He really did not expect things to take a turn for the worse, and that pavilion leader who would end up being besieged. Haha, it looks like things aren't going as smoothly as you imagined. Ing Feng said sarcastically. Why don't I try to invite Shuyu to join me? You? Pavilion leader who stared at him. Ing Feng laughed. Why can't I? As the saying goes, no discord, no concord. I admire his talent. He knew that he could not do anything to Suyu, so he took advantage of the situation and took Suyu under his command. Pavilion leader who was furious. This was too much. As the most junior pavilion leader, he was being bullied by the other 8 pavilion leaders, but he could do nothing about it. After all, he was not the only pavilion leader with a powerful background. Especially pavilion leader Great Duke, his experience was the most terrifying. 30,000 years ago, he was the only pavilion leader among the 9 great pavilion leaders who did not enter the Ancient Star because he was away on official business. Hence, he had avoided the calamity and survived until today. Among the 9 great pavilion leaders, his words carried enormous weight. Pavilion leader who was powerless when he personally said that he wanted to snatch Suyu. However, on second thought, pavilion leader who breathed a sigh of relief. Suyu's life and death were unknown, and his whereabouts were unknown. How could he take him under his command? However, almost as soon as he thought about it, the servants outside the hall reported hurriedly. Reporting to the 9 great pavilion leaders, Pavilion Leader Mu has returned with Deputy Pavilion Leader Shui. What? The 9 great pavilion leaders, who were in the middle of a discussion, were stunned. Wasn't Suyu missing? Why did he suddenly appear? But immediately, the 9 of them came to their senses. They slammed the table and stood up, using their divine powers to fly out. For this, they did not hesitate to use their teleportation divine techniques and rushed out, all wanting to be the first to come into contact with Suyu. Unfortunately, Pavilion Leader whose cultivation was too weak. When he was about to fly out, the seats of the 8 pavilion leaders were empty. Chapter 17:14. Outside, Mu Songhai led Suyu to the main palace, his heart heavy with worry. She simulated countless possible scenarios in her mind. What if the Shadow Wind Cabinet Master insists on punishing Suyu? What if the other Cabinet Masters also have a problem with Suyu and join forces with the Shadow Wind Cabinet Master to suppress Suyu? All kinds of disadvantageous situations flashed through her mind. After a round of deduction, she found that the best-case scenario was that cabinet leader who stood his ground and protected Suyu. She couldn't help but feel slightly regretful, and she said, Suyu, I probably shouldn't have promised you. If I hadn't, you wouldn't have come back here. She had thought that Suyu had returned to the dazzling Crystal Palace for the secret of the black-gray stone. Unexpectedly, before Mu Songhai's voice fell, the space around him fluctuated violently. 8 extremely powerful waves of divine power suddenly descended. Mu Songhai's heart sank, and he protected Su Yu behind him. His heart sank to the bottom. Not good, leave quickly. The 8 pavilion masters want to harm you. Apart from this possibility, she really couldn't think of any other reason for the 8 pavilion masters to show up at the same time. Su Yu's eyes flashed coldly as he secretly activated the royal power dragon sword. If those old things really didn't know what was good for them, then even if he had to face the danger of being devoured, he would still teach them a lesson. Swish, swish, swish. The 8 pavilion masters showed up one after another. Grand Duke Pavilion Elder took a big step forward with a warm smile on his face. Ha ha, little friend. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Huh? Mu Songhai was stunned for a moment. It seemed that Great Pavilion Master's expression didn't seem to be unfavorable to him. Su Yu, my little friend, you're really a young hero. The Langya Cabinet Master also squeezed forward with a smile. So, you're Su Yu? TSK, TSK. You're really a talented man. How rare. Another cabinet chief squeezed his way over. Haha, you must be Su Yu, the one who helped me to clean up my house. I would like to treat you to a meal. I wonder if you would do me the honor? Mu Songhai's mind was empty, and he fell into a daze. What happened to make these 8 mysterious old fellows become so approachable? The most exaggerated thing was that even Shadow Wind took the initiative to express goodwill. She thought she was dreaming. It was not until she was pushed out by the 8 pavilion chiefs that she woke up from her dream. At this moment, she saw Cabinet Leader who's stumbling over. She immediately went up to him and supported him, asking, Cabinet Leader, what happened? Hu Gazhang's face was filled with anxiety. Don't talk anymore. Help me squeeze in quickly. We cannot let them snatch Su Yu away first. Huh? Mu Songhai instantly understood what was going on. These old fellows were actually trying to recruit Su Yu as their subordinates. After figuring this out, Mu Songhai didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Based on her understanding of Su Yu, she knew that he wouldn't be attracted by any temptations. Under Minister Hu's urging, she had no choice but to help him open a path, allowing him to squeeze in. When he entered, the 8 pavilion masters had already thrown out their baits, especially Pavilion Master Taigong's bait, which made Pavilion Master Hu feel helpless. Su Yu, my young friend, if you join me, I would like to invite you to be the cabinet master of the sword-like cabinet. And that child, Blood Guanyin, I think you two are a perfect match, truly a match made in heaven. Not only did he hand over the strongest pavilion branch of the Star Pavilion to Su Yu, but he also betrothed the strongest heaven ruler, Shui Guanyin. Pavilion Master Hu found it difficult to speak. How could his subordinates compare to this? Su Yu was a little speechless. Weren't they supposed to make things difficult for him? He had already mentally prepared himself. But in the end, they were all just solicitations. Hearing Pavilion Master Taigong's temptations, Su Yu was speechless. He tactfully refused. Thank you for your kindness, Pavilion Masters, but I need to think about it. Haha, no matter. You have only joined the Star Pavilion for a short time, so you do not know much about it. Let Blood Guanyin accompany you and explain the details of the Star Pavilion to you. Pavilion Master Taigong was not surprised at all. The other Pavilion Masters secretly cursed the old fox. With Blood Guanyin accompanying him, would Su Yu still consider other Pavilion Masters? Seeing that the other Pavilion Masters wanted to slander him again, Pavilion Master Taigong waved his sleeves and forced the other Pavilion Masters to open a path. He smiled at Su Yu. Let's go. That child, Blood Guanyin, has been talking about you. Black lines appeared on Su Yu's forehead. She really didn't give him any leeway to choose. Moreover, he really didn't want to face Blood Guanyin now. If she hadn't understood Su Yu's good intentions, she might still hate him now. Just as Su Yu was thinking of a way to escape, his gaze swept over the Pavilion Masters. He seemed to have found a slightly familiar figure out of the corner of his eye, and he couldn't help but look back. Finally, he fixed his gaze on a short and fat figure that was the outermost. He was slightly plump and had a mustache. His eyes were full of craftiness. Su Yu was stunned by his appearance. He really found him familiar. He couldn't help but walk over curiously. Cupping his fists, he said, Your Excellency, Have we met somewhere before? Eh. Pavilion Master, who was hanging his head dejectedly. He didn't have any hope of recruiting Suyu back to his side. Hearing such a question out of the blue, he raised his head in surprise. Suyu's face came into view. Pavilion Master, who was stunned for a moment. He said, I am Pavilion Master Who. Perhaps you have seen me somewhere before? Pavilion Master Who? Suyu was surprised. So he was the Pavilion Master in charge of the Sword Pavilion. If that was the case, it was possible that he had seen his portrait by accident. Oh, Suyu nodded and brushed past him. However, after taking a few steps, he stopped and turned his head to look at Pavilion Master Who. His heart was filled with doubts. No. Suyu shook his head and said, I think I saw you a long time ago. The long time, he said, was before he came to the great beginning realm. Cabinet Master, who was startled, but seeing that Suyu was interested in him, he was naturally happy. He said, My name is Ushaodai. Perhaps you and I are fated, and you have seen my image somewhere. Who? Shaodai, Suyu muttered. The more he thought about it, the more familiar it sounded. His thoughts went back to an inconspicuous place in the Jiuzhou continent. The Blue Mountain Range, the Yuan family shop, the elixir shopkeeper, Hu Shaodai. It's you, Suyu said in surprise. He felt like everything was unreal. In the past, he had forcibly reversed time and space to take on the Central Prefecture's king's realm-crossing attack. As a result, he had overdrafted his vitality and turned into a white-haired old man. Later on, he had come to the Blue Mountain Range's Yuan family's house, where he had secretly refined the fairy expansion pill and given it to the elixir shopkeeper, Hu Shaodai, to sell. Later on, they were coveted, so they had no choice but to give up. Suyu gifted him with a sum of money and sent him to a faraway place. Suyu couldn't believe his eyes. He had unexpectedly seen Hu Shaodai outside of the Taotai's cage. Hu Shaodai was confused and asked, Do you know me? It was rare for Suyu to run into an old friend, so he became excited and asked, Have you forgotten me? Hu Shaodai was at a loss. He had never seen Suyu before. All of a sudden, Suyu realized where the problem was. His whole body emitted a divine light, and his appearance changed. He had transformed from a handsome, silver-haired young man into a white-haired, sage-like old man. It's you, old mister. You are my great benefactor. When Hu Xiaodai's face appeared, his expression changed, and he cried out in alarm. In the past, Suyu had interacted with him in the body of an old man, so he obviously couldn't recognize the young Suyu. Hu Xiaodai's facial muscles twitched, which showed how excited he was. Plop! Under everyone's gaze, Hu Xiaodai knelt down and kowtowed repeatedly. Benefactor, please forgive Hu Xiaodai for being blind and not recognizing benefactor. Suyu hurriedly helped him up and said delightedly, What benefactor? You and I are old friends. Let's find a quiet place to talk. He was very curious. How could a mortal leave the Taotai's cage? Many strong men of the Path Masters couldn't even escape from that place. Hu Xiaodai was also very excited. Holding Suyu's hand, they moved to the side hall to talk alone. The cabinet masters on the ground were left in shock. Damn it, how could such a ridiculous thing happen? Man's plan is beyond God's plan. Are they old acquaintances? Even the cabinet master Great-Grand Duke was speechless. Could it be so ridiculous? Suyu was about to fall into his trap, but this happened. In the hall, the two of them talked for half a day. It turned out that when Hu Xiaodai left that day, she was accidentally swept away by an extraterrestrial evil wind. When she reappeared, she fell into a strange, giant formation in the sea and was surrounded by a group of sea beasts. Coincidentally, a cabinet master of the Star Pavilion was investigating the formation nearby. He was surprised by Hu Xiaodai's appearance and background, so he brought her back to the Star Pavilion. Later, he found out that Hu Xiaodai was quite accomplished in business, so he started from the bottom and gradually became a cabinet master. Such a miraculous experience made Suyu sigh endlessly. However, Suyu noticed the formation. The cabinet master must have accidentally triggered the formation, causing Hu Xiaodai, who was in the cage, to be accidentally transported out. If that was the case, didn't it mean that the cage was not invulnerable? If the sinful lady knew about this loophole, would she, realizing the seriousness of the matter? Suyu said, Remember not to mention this to anyone, for the sake of Yumi and the Star Pavilion. If he let the sinful lady out of the cage, the consequences would be unimaginable. The civilization of the constellation C could be destroyed by the sinful lady with a single thought. After talking for a long time, they finally brought up the matter of rejoining the Star Pavilion. Suyu said, "It's not that I don't want to, but my identity is special now, and I can't trust the Star Pavilion." Hu Xiaodai understood immediately and slapped her head. "Look at me, I didn't think of that. You are now rumored to have received the Pathmaster's legacy, and I can't be sure whether the 3 great cabinet masters will have designs on you. You really should leave this place as soon as possible. But if that happens, the promise I made to you before to repay your kindness will fall through." Suyu laughed. "You ordered Mu Songhai to invite me into the Sword Pavilion, which was a great help to me. I have repaid my kindness, so you don't have to take it to heart." "Oh, benefactor, you are as generous as ever. Unfortunately, if I don't repay your kindness, I won't be able to rest in peace," Hu Xiaodai said. "If there's a chance, I will definitely repay this kindness." Nodding, Suyu said, "Then I will return to the peak of the Ancient Corpse sect first. I won't show my face in public for a while." "That would be for the best," Hu Xiaodai said. Beep beep. All of a sudden, Hu Xiaodia's jade pendant rang hurriedly. Her face changed slightly, and she said, "The Chief Pavilion Master and the 3 Pavilion Masters have returned." "Them?" Suyu's expression tightened. If it was not necessary, he really didn't want to face them. "The Purple Dream Divine Warrior of the East Ocean, the Snow Dragon Divine Warrior of the North Ocean, and the Killer Emperor of the South Ocean have also returned. It seems like they will have to continue their discussion." "Oh, the Purple Dream Divine Warrior is here too? Then there is nothing to worry about. However, the Killer Emperor..." Suyu frowned, and he vaguely had a bad feeling. Chapter 17:15. After thinking for a while, Suyu said, "I'll leave first." Although he had the Purple Dream Divine Warrior to rely on, it was better to avoid trouble if possible. Hu Xiaodai said, "All right, one less trouble. I'll leave the Crystal Palace in my personal carriage and deceive people." He touched his storage device and took out a bronze carriage. The carriage was equipped with powerful formations, including attack, defense, and isolation, all of which are the work of the divine warriors of heaven and earth. Suyu was secretly surprised. The Star Pavilion treated the 9 Pavilion Masters exceptionally well. Even the carriage was personally forged by the divine warriors of heaven and earth. With this item in hand, even if the Pavilion Masters were attacked by the Crystal Overlord, they would be safe and sound. The isolation effect of the bronze carriage allowed Suyu to leave the Crystal Palace easily without being detected. Suyu hesitated. "Once I leave, I may not be able to return. How can I return this to you?" Losing such a precious item would cause Hu Xiaodai a lot of trouble. "Aha, the Benevolent Heart Pavilion Master has always favored me. If I lose the bronze carriage, he will only scold me a little. It's no big deal," Hu Xiaodai said readily. Suyu was moved. It was easy for him to say, but it was not easy to forge the bronze carriage. If it was really lost, he was afraid that it would not just be a few words of reprimand. "Benefactor, you have given me a new lease on life. What's a mere bronze carriage? Without you, would I still be where I am now? Take it. It's best if you can return it to me. If you can't come back, consider it a farewell gift from me to you, benefactor," Hu Xiaodai said. Suyu pondered for a moment, then took out a whole 10,000-year-old golden flames, forbidden wood from the 9 Jade spiritual pearl. "I have nothing else to give you. Just take it." Suyu wrapped it with his divine power to prevent the smell of the golden flames forbidden wood from spreading, and stuffed it into Hu Xiaodia's palm. As the Pavilion Master of the Star Pavilion, Hu Xiaodia's vast experience was amazing. He recognized it at first glance and cried out in shock. The extinct divine wood, the golden flames forbidden wood, and it's 10,000-year-old. This one can be bought with 10 bronze carriages. Sure. Suyu gestured to keep quiet and pointed outside. Hu Xiaodai understood. She lowered her voice and said hurriedly, "Benefactor, I cannot accept such a great gift." Suyu said, "Don't worry, I still have a lot. Make good use of this golden flames forbidden wood. I hope it will help you in your situation in the Starry Pavilion." It was more than just help. Hu Shaodai was well aware of this. How important was the golden flames forbidden wood to divine warriors of heaven and earth? It was the birthday of the Snow Dragon Emperor. Just a thumb-long piece was enough to make him incomparably happy. He was willing to use precious Emperor-level talismans to exchange for it. This entire stock was 10,000 times the size of that small section, with his golden flames forbidden wood. How many connections could Hu Shaodai establish in the Star Pavilion? Perhaps the other two cabinet venerables would also have to be somewhat polite to Hu Shaodai. Even if the other 8 pavilion chiefs wanted to join forces to bully him, they would have to consider the attitude of the 3 pavilion masters first. His position among the 9 pavilion masters would be greatly improved. I owe Benefactor another great favor, Hu Shaodai said in shame. Suyu smiled. All right, I will leave immediately. Take care of yourself. After saying that, Suyu boarded the bronze carriage. The carriage was engraved with various switches for various formations. Suyu activated the isolation formation and drove the bronze carriage out of the side palace. The many pavilion chiefs outside the room were stunned. Pavilion Master, whose bronze carriage? Why did he leave so suddenly? The great Duke Cabinet Master had a bad feeling. He came to the front of the side palace in a flash and knocked on the door. Suyu, how are you now? Humph. With a light snort, Hu Shaodai twisted her slightly plump body and walked out with her chest puffed out. The great Duke Cabinet Master glanced inside. There was no one there. He could not help but ask angrily, "Where did you send Shuiyu?" Obviously, the person in the bronze carriage just now was not Hu Shaodai herself, but Suyu. I have no comment, Hu Shaodai said lightly. In the past, when facing the great Duke Cabinet Master, he had no confidence. But now, touching the storage device, the corners of Hu Xiaodia's mouth curled into a meaningful smile. Soon, everything would change. The bronze carriage left the dazzling Crystal Palace. Along the way, all the guests automatically made way for it, their eyes filled with awe. Only a beautiful figure followed it quietly. Suyu kept his promise with the purple dream divine warrior and did not leave the imperial city. He wanted to find a secluded place to hide. Beep! All of a sudden, the runes carved on the inside of the bronze carriage radiated a green light and appeared before Suyu's eyes. The green light was depicting a complete topographic map of the Shui nation of the Northern Territory. Every street and the shops along the way were extremely detailed. The bronze carriage has such an effect? Suyu was surprised. The map now had a function that allowed him to pinpoint his location at any time. In fact, not only the imperial city, but the entire map of the Sea of Constellations was depicted in detail within the bronze carriage. Wherever Suyu wanted to go, he could find it with the help of the map. It was extremely convenient. In the entire Sea of Constellations, only the Starry Cabinet has this kind of wealth, right? Suyu exclaimed inwardly. The amount of manpower and resources needed to depict the entire Sea of Constellations must be astronomical. At that moment, on the green light map, a bright red dot flickered. A line of words appeared near the red dot. Unknown strong person has been tailing you for 10 streets. Being tailed is confirmed. Please activate the defensive and offensive formations. Suyu was stunned. There was an early warning function. The power of the bronze carriage was beyond Suyu's expectations. However, Suyu did not let his guard down when being tailed. Staring at the red dot, Suyu steered the bronze carriage toward the southern part of the city. That was the exit of the imperial city. In the end, no matter where the bronze carriage went, the red dot followed. Suyu was amused. Someone dares to follow the cabinet master of the Starry Cabinet. I wonder who he is. Stop, Suyu ordered. The bronze carriage immediately stopped by the side. The red dot waited for a moment. Seeing that the bronze carriage showed no signs of moving, it walked over. Suyu smiled coldly and prepared to activate the defensive and offensive formations. Cabinet Master Hu, please don't be angry. I am Empress Ziwei, the descendant of the Snow Dragon, Divine Warrior. I have an important matter to discuss with you. It was the voice of Empress Ziwei. At that moment, the green light flashed in front of Suyu again, and the scene of the outside world appeared. A beautiful woman with a frosty aura stood in front of the bronze chariot and bowed slightly. Suyu was speechless. How could it be her? Moreover, she had mistaken the person in the bronze carriage for Cabinet Master Hu. Ahem, Miss Ziwei, why are you stopping me? Suyu imitated Xiaodia's voice and asked. He really didn't want to tangle with this woman. It was better to think of a way to send her away as soon as possible. Empress Ziwei said coldly, I want to know where your former subordinate, Shuiyu, is now. She didn't know where she heard that Suyu was a former member of the Starry Cabinet, Shuiyu. Suyu felt guilty. This woman still wouldn't let it go? Clearing his throat, Suyu said, Since you know Shuiyu is from the past, why are you still asking me? How would I know where he is now? Empress Ziwei's expression didn't change. She said calmly, Is that so? If he is from the past, why did he return to the dazzling Crystal Palace twice and go to the peak of the Starry Cabinet? After all, this was the territory of the Shui nation of the Northern Territory. As the descendant of the Snow Dragon Divine Warrior, it was easy for Empress Ziwei to know everything that happened in the dazzling Crystal Palace. Miss Ziwei, why are you looking for me? Just say it. Suyu said calmly. Since she knew Suyu had gone to the peak of the Starry Cabinet, she could go there directly if she really wanted to find him. She obviously had other motives for stopping Cabinet Master Hu. Empress Ziwei raised her snow-white eyes and said calmly, I want to know where Suyu, or Shuiyu, came from. I've investigated him. He used to be the second young master of a small, mediocre family on the Twin Star Island, but he changed into a different person overnight. The most suspicious thing is that he requested to enter the Yin-Yang hot spring to change his appearance and become Suyu. He must have been reincarnated, right? I'd like to ask Cabinet Master Hu about his background. Suyu's eyes narrowed, a cold gleam flashing in them. She was investigating him. This woman really wanted to go against him. Suyu said indifferently, Miss Ziwei, what if I don't want to tell you? Then I'll ask your Sword Pavilion, Sub-Pavilion Master. I don't believe I can't get his background out of him. Empress Ziwei thought about it, but she couldn't swallow her resentment. It was bad enough that he had been tricked and eliminated, but he had treated her in such a way that her fiancé had misunderstood her. She wanted to find Suyu's weakness and punish him harshly. Only then could she vent her hatred. Suyu's eyes narrowed even deeper. Fortunately, he had met her in person. If this crazy woman had really gone after Hu Xiaodai, it would have been troublesome. Since she wanted to make things difficult for herself, he would grant her wish. All right, I can tell you his background, but this is a serious matter. Miss Ziwei, why don't you come into the carriage for a chat? Empress Ziwei looked at the bronze carriage warily, but then she thought about it. With his status, and with so many people around, what would he dare do to her? So after a moment's hesitation, she nodded and entered the bronze carriage. At the same time, in the crowd, the Heartless Saber Emperor and the Wuji Sword Saint appeared from a dark corner. The Heartless Saber Emperor frowned slightly. Big brother, you said that Su would definitely come looking for sister-in-law, and we could wait for Suyu if we guarded sister-in-law. But how could it be Cabinet Master Hu from the Starry Pavilion? The Wuji Sword Saint's tensed face relaxed slightly. Maybe I really misunderstood Ziwei. She is a proud woman, and she would not lie. If she said she did not have an affair with Suyu, it could very well be true. After calming down for a while, the Wuji Sword Saint slowly came to his senses. Coupled with the fact that he had followed Empress Ziwei all the way and discovered that she did not have a rendezvous with Suyu as he had imagined, the knot in his heart was mostly resolved. The Heartless Saber Emperor's lips twitched. He wanted to sow discord, but facts spoke louder than words. His future sister-in-law might really have been wronged. The Wuji Sword Saint was in a good mood. Let's wait. After Ziwei comes out, I want to have a good talk with her. As long as she is still pure, I can apologize to her. Inside the bronze carriage, Empress Ziwei leaped into the carriage along the activated seal. She bowed without even lifting her head. I have offended you, Cabinet Master Hu. Please forgive me. Hee, I don't see any intention of apologizing. So you said mockingly. Chapter 17:16. How come it's you? Empress Ziwei exclaimed in shock. She never expected that the owner of Cabinet Hu's exclusive bronze carriage would be Suyu. Surprised? aren't you? I'm also surprised that the cold and aloof Empress Ziwei would miss me so much, Suyu said with a faint smile. Empress Ziwei looked guilty. Suyu had heard everything she said to Cabinet who just now. The scene before her was as awkward as it could be. Even someone as cold and arrogant as she was could not help but feel uneasy. However, years of cold and arrogant habits made her look cold and arrogant. She snorted without hesitation. Su, you're despicable. How dare you pretend to be Cabinet who detests me? Su, you could not help but laugh. Nonsense. Am I stopping you, or are you stopping me? Am I the one probing your background, or are you the one probing mine? Who do you think is despicable? Empress Ziwei blushed. She had never investigated anyone in secret, nor had she done so before. The only time she was caught red-handed was when she was extremely embarrassed. However, she was not one to admit defeat easily. Surnamed Su, that's enough. I've tolerated you for a long time. Empress Ziwei tried to hide her emotions and shouted. Suyu snorted coldly. Unfortunately, I've tolerated you for a long time too. I'll let you go again and again, but you're so aggressive. Such an answer undoubtedly infuriated Empress Ziwei even more. Humph, it's better if it's you. I don't have to ask your cabinet master. I'll ask you directly. Empress Ziwei attacked. Extreme Ice Feast. Suyu laughed angrily. He pressed his palm on the defensive runes. Suddenly, the bronze carriage shone brightly and condensed into a horsetail whisk. Tens of thousands of threads unfurled from the horsetail whisk like a giant umbrella. The ice from the extreme ice feast invaded the umbrella, but it quickly dissipated like snow in the sun. The rest of the cold air struck the walls of the bronze carriage and was immediately repelled. It was extremely sturdy. Empress Ziwei's expression changed slightly. She had long heard that the bronze carriage was extremely powerful. Even the Snow Dragon King had praised it when he mentioned it. She could not do anything to the bronze carriage's defense. Empress Ziwei said in annoyance, Su, count yourself lucky. Let's wait and see. She retreated. However, how could Suyu do as he wished? You'd better not leave. Suyu said coldly. He pressed on the attack rune and activated the bronze chariot's attack mode. Creak! The bronze door closed. Empress Ziwei's path of retreat was cut off. She said angrily, What do you want to do? Suyu said coldly, What do you think? As long as you harm me, I'm not allowed to attack you? Streaks of green light shot out from the bronze carriage and weaved into a net, enveloping her from all directions. Empress Ziwei gritted her teeth. Instead of retreating, she advanced towards Suyu, intending to capture him first. Unfortunately, the defensive horsetail whisk was extremely powerful and easily repelled her with a spin. At the same time, the azure light closed in, forming a cage that trapped Empress Ziwei at the center. Empress Ziwei immediately unleashed a powerful divine technique in an attempt to blast it open, but it was to no avail. Even if she forcefully unleashed the icy calamity of the meteorite, which she had yet to fully master, it would be futile. After a while, Empress Ziwei panted and glared at Suyu angrily. I don't believe you dare to do anything to me. This was the territory of the Snow Dragon Divine Warrior. If she died or was kidnapped, the Snow Dragon Divine Warrior would know immediately. Suyu smiled. You don't seem to understand your situation. With a snap of his fingers, the azure light rapidly closed in, compressing the space. No matter how much Empress Ziwei resisted, she was still wrapped up like a dumpling. Her hands and feet were tied, and it was difficult for her to even stand. What was even more amazing was that the azure light had a powerful suppressive effect, compressing all of Empress Ziwei's frosty energy and divine power into her body, preventing her from releasing it. Su, unless you kill me, I will not rest. Empress Ziwei was unafraid. Suyu smiled and stepped forward, poking her shoulder with his finger. Suddenly, she fell to the ground, swaying. Face down. Su, I won't forgive you. Empress Ziwei yelled in a muffled voice as she looked down. Suyu chuckled, then flipped her over and made her lie on her back on the ground. Suyu stood with his hands behind his back, looking down at her peerless beauty and her stunning figure. Empress Ziwei blushed. For some reason, Wherever Su Yu's gaze landed on, that part of her body would tremble. She had a feeling that she was being seen through. She had always been as pure as ice and as clean as jade. She had never been touched, much less seen naked. Su Yu's gaze made her feel fearful for no reason. Her voice trembled. What are you doing to me? Haha, what am I trying to do? Didn't my gaze explain it very clearly? Su Yu smiled wickedly. He pressed his fingers together, and the azure light shrank again. Creak! Empress Ziwei's precious clothes were torn to shreds by the azure light. Her flawless jade body was presented in front of him with a single glance. Ah, you. Empress Ziwei was both embarrassed and angry. She wanted to cover her sensitive parts, but her body was restrained, and she could not stop him at all. What made her even more embarrassed and angry was that the more she struggled, the more her stunning figure was exposed. But she did not struggle, which gave the impression that she had resigned herself to fate and allowed him to look at her body greedily. However, she had obviously underestimated Su Yu. Su Yu did not just look down, he also took out a piece of jade and recorded the image of her in detail. Su, it's fine if you look, but what are you trying to do by recording it? Empress Ziwei was furious when she saw Su Yu's actions, so she did not realize the problem with her words. Su Yu laughed. Oh, you mean I'll allow it just because I look? Empress Ziwei was speechless. She gritted her teeth and stopped struggling. She turned her head to the side, closed her eyes, and snorted. Do I have the right to not allow it? To be honest, even Su Yu could not help but be tempted by her appearance. Evil thoughts grew wildly in his mind like weeds. There was a strong voice telling him to take her, and once he did, she would be his from then on. Su Yu's mouth was dry. Fortunately, he had extraordinary willpower and forcibly cut off the evil thoughts, and his eyes regained clarity. Putting away the jade charm, Su Yu tapped on the green light. At the same time, he threw a piece of his clothes over her. With his back facing her, he said, I hope that the entanglement between us will end here and stop investigating me. Otherwise, I don't mind spreading this jade charm to the whole world. You're despicable. Empress Ziwei clutched Su Yu's clothes and put them on messily, revealing her snow-white chest and a pair of slender, round legs. Su Yu said indifferently, Say what you want, but don't doubt my words. Let's go. Creak. The bronze door opened. Empress Ziwei clenched her fists, wishing she could perish together with Su Yu. Especially when she thought of how Su Yu had seen her naked and recorded such a video, she felt as if thousands of ants were crawling on her body. She could not help but tremble and feel numb. However, looking at the defense in front of Su Yu and the powerful attack, Empress Ziwei reluctantly retreated from the bronze door. Only when she was about to leave did she say fiercely, Su Yu, I'll remember you. With that, she turned and walked down the bronze carriage. The limitless sword saint, who had been waiting outside for a long time, saw a proud figure walking out. Based on their years of acquaintance, he immediately recognized it was Empress Ziwei. He immediately went up to her and said, Ziwei. Empress Ziwei turned her head and was slightly surprised. However, she thought about it and said coldly, You followed me? The limitless sword saint's pupils constricted as he stared unblinkingly at the clothes Empress Ziwei was wearing. It was a man's clothes. Moreover, Empress Ziwei's legs were trembling slightly, and her face was strangely flushed. Her clothes were messy. Any man's imagination would run wild. The heartless saber emperor stared at the clothes and said in shock, It's Su Yu's clothes? He was wearing this at the ancient dream altar. What? It's him? The limitless sword saint shot a fierce look at Empress Ziwei's eyes. His face was ashen, and he could not help but tremble. Even the soles of his feet shivered. He sucked in a breath of cold air and said, Ziwei, who was in the bronze carriage? He was still hoping that his guess was wrong. Empress Ziwei had never bothered to explain herself. She sneered coldly. It's Su Yu. Humph. Didn't you follow me because you suspected that I had an ambiguous relationship with Su Yu? Now, as you wished, I have met Su Yu. So what? She was speaking out of anger. But in the limitless sword saint's ears, it was Empress Ziwei admitting that she had an affair with Su Yu. At that moment, the limitless sword saint felt that the world had darkened. The sun, the moon, and the stars were all spinning, and everything before him was pitch black. His whole body froze in place, motionless. "Stop following me, you're disgusting." Empress Ziwei snorted coldly and left. Only then did the limitless sword saint come to his senses. His eyes were so gloomy that it looked like they were about to drip water. He growled in a low voice, "B*TCH, stop right there." "Huh? What did you call me?" Empress Ziwei turned around coldly and stared at the limitless sword saint. "B*TCH? Haha, is Ziwei so deplorable in your heart?" No one had ever described her like that. Even the most detestable Su Yu had never called her A**TCH. The only person who had ever called her that was her fiancé. In comparison, it was laughable. The limitless sword saint drew his sword angrily. The sonorous sound of the sword was extremely cold. "Shut up. You B**TCH. You're still trying to cover up? First, I chose to forgive you after what happened in the Crystal Palace. Now, you've come all the way to find Su Yu and have an illicit affair in the bronze carriage. You still have the cheek to explain?" Empress Ziwei's eyes were full of disappointment and mockery. Her fiancé, who had been with her for so many years, turned out to be a stranger who did not trust her at all. Based on her character, she would never have bothered to do illicit things, let alone cover up or lie. But the limitless sword saint stubbornly believed that she was defending herself. She had already suffered enough from Su Yu's vexation in the bronze carriage, and now Su Yu had a handle on her. Mentally and physically exhausted, she had intended to find a reliable person to discuss how to get rid of Su Yu. But what happened in the end? A trace of sadness lingered in her heart. Her eyes gradually became crazed as she laughed hysterically. "Yes, I, Ziwei, am A**TCH. I fell in love with someone else and threw myself into Su Yu's arms. So what? I did come all the way to get into his bed. So what? Not only that, I gave my first time to him too. So what? I, Ziwei, am Su Yu's woman. I followed him with all my heart. That is the truth." She stared at the limitless sword saint coldly and said mockingly, "Are you satisfied now? Humph, don't ever see me again." When she finished speaking, she teleported away. What was left behind were 3 rhetorical questions that echoed throughout half of the Imperial City. Everyone who heard was shocked and dumbfounded. The Imperial City, which was in an uproar, seemed to have been frozen in time. Chapter 17:17. F***CK, did I hear wrongly? That can't be Empress Ziwei's voice. I'm afraid so. But are her words true? Empress Ziwei has already been taken by Su Yu? No, she's already Su Yu's woman. And she said she would follow him with all her heart? This can't be. Cries of anguish filled the Imperial City. The number 1 beauty of the Sea of Constellations had been taken just like that. Ugh, let's stay away from the Wuji Sword Saint. He might be in a bad mood right now. Thank you for reminding me. I'd better stay in the cavern and train for the time being. Me too. The successor of the Emperor Killer is already murderous. It's good enough that I haven't gone crazy after such a provocation. Let's go. As the victim, the Wuji Sword Saint stood rooted to the ground, unable to pull himself away for a long time. Even his younger brother, the heartless Saber Emperor, could not help but sympathize with him. Isn't this scene a little too miserable? If it were him, he might not have the courage to live on. Su Yu. After a long time, the Wuji Sword Saint bellowed at the sky. His eyes were replaced by madness. "I'll kill you." The Wuji Sword Saint was furious as he charged at the bronze carriage with his sword. Inside the carriage, Su Yu had a clear view of the situation outside. Hearing Empress Ziwei's declaration, Su Yu's mouth twitched. This be **TCH. Why did she drag me into the water after splashing all over herself? This is great. Not only will the Emperor Killer not let me go, even the Snow Dragon Emperor will chase me to the end. Looking down at the crushed jade in his palm, Su Yu smiled bitterly. Looks like I provoked her too much. He had no intention of threatening Empress Ziwei. He was only trying to scare her and make her retreat. Who would have thought that after 2 blows, Empress Ziwei would flip out? Moreover, this flipping out had brought about great trouble. Seeing the Wuji Sword Saint charge at him like a madman, Suyu did not dare stay in the imperial city. Purple Dream Emperor, it looks like you can only look for me outside the city. Before the Wuji Sword Saint could reach him, the bronze carriage shot out with a whoosh, heading straight for the chains of the imperial city. You want to leave? The limitless Sword Saint roared. Father, please show yourself. He crushed a piece of white bone in his hand. Not long after the white bone shattered, an aura that caused the entire imperial city to tremble suddenly appeared. 3 feet behind the limitless Sword Saint, the Emperor Killer appeared strangely. He frowned slightly. What's so urgent that they have to send out the highest level signal? I am currently discussing important matters with the Chief Pavilion Master and a few other emperors. The limitless Sword Saint turned around, revealing a hideous face that was almost distorted, and said, Father, I beg you, help me kill Suyu. Suyu? The Emperor Sha was slightly surprised by his son's expression. Ever since they were young, he had taught his 2 sons to be strong and steady. Limitless Sword God was like what he had taught him, steady and restrained. It was the first time he had lost control like this. What's wrong with Suyu? The Emperor of Sha asked. The emotionless saber monarch narrated everything that had happened just now. After hearing this, the slaying emperor's expression remained indifferent, but there was a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. Follow me. The Emperor of Sha was expressionless. The emotionless saber monarch's eyes were filled with joy. Finally, his father had shown his murderous intent. For many years, his father had rarely shown his murderous intent. He had only shown it when he was killing the few enemies on his neck. From then on, every time he showed his murderous intent, he would not rest until he was dead. There had never been an exception. Suyu, you are dead. The emotionless saber monarch sneered. Swish, the divine warrior of heaven and earth could turn the world upside down with a single thought. Before Suyu reached the exit, a stalwart figure with a skull around his neck descended in front of the bronze chariot. The bronze chariot sensed danger and automatically activated its defenses. A horsetail whisk flew out of the bronze chariot and stood in front of the chariot. The Emperor Killer placed his hands behind his back and took a step forward. This step seemed to be filled with endless mysteries. Chains of law lingered under his feet. The horsetail whisk collapsed in an instant, and the bronze chariot was forced to a stop by a mysterious force. You are Suyu? The Emperor Killer asked indifferently. The bronze chariot was clearly sealed, but the Emperor Killer's eyes seemed to ignore the bronze chariot, piercing through it and looking straight at Suyu. Suyu's heart thumped wildly, and the threads of fate fluctuated violently. The Emperor Killer did not reveal his identity because there was no need to. That aura and that appearance. Apart from the Emperor Killer of the South Sea, there was no other person in the sea of constellations. Under the shroud of his aura, the entire bronze chariot shook violently as if it would collapse at any moment. Suyu sighed helplessly. He couldn't avoid it after all. The bronze chariot couldn't protect him either. Opening the bronze chariot, Suyu stepped down and looked straight into the Emperor Killer's eyes. Yes, the Emperor Killer was slightly surprised that this person dared to look him straight in the eye without fear. You are indeed the 5-Spirit King of the ancient dream altar. You are indeed extraordinary, the Emperor Killer said expressionlessly. Dying by my hands won't dirty my hands. As soon as he finished speaking, the Emperor Killer attacked like a shadow, his index finger lightly touching the space between Suyu's eyebrows. A majestic, primordial force came crashing down. At that moment, Suyu felt as if his life was on the verge of collapse. He was only one step away from death. At that moment, a small green sprout appeared between Suyu's eyebrows. The green sprout grew rapidly, and with Suyu's eyebrows as its root, it grew into a 1,000-foot-long purple divine bamboo. Crack! The divine bamboo split open, and a graceful lady clad in purple clouds walked out from within. Her expression was calm, without joy or sorrow, like a fairy who was above the mortal world. With a flick of her finger, the Emperor Killer was sent flying back. At the same time, the limitless Sword Saint and the merciless Saber Emperor rushed over. Looking at the scene before him, the merciless Saber Emperor stared at the purple Dream Emperor and said, "Father, this is the woman. She is Su Yu's backer. If you want to punish Su Yu, you'd better punish her first." The limitless Sword Saint's face was twisted with murderous intent as he shouted angrily, "Be asterisk Tisich. The Emperor has arrived. If you don't want to die, scram immediately." The purple Dream Emperor frowned slightly. She looked at the two of them, then at the Emperor Killer. She said calmly, "This is the second time you have humiliated me. Last time, I let bygones be bygones because of you. This time, do you want to do it, or do you want to do it yourself?" The limitless Sword Saint shouted coldly, "Scram, I am in a bad mood, and I have no time for you. Let me do it." The Emperor Killer sighed in disappointment. He turned around and looked at the limitless Sword Saint and the merciless Saber Emperor. He said, "Both of you, come over here and stand in front of me." The two of them did not understand, and they walked over in confusion. As soon as they approached, the Emperor Killer slapped them in the face, causing them to roll on the ground and spit out mouthfuls of blood. The two brothers only stopped after smashing several small mountains. The limitless Sword Saint covered his face and asked angrily, "Father, why did you hit me?" His younger brother, the merciless Saber Emperor, was equally confused. The Emperor Killer looked at them indifferently. "I was not hitting you, but saving your lives. I hope you will remember this slap and do not make the same mistake again. Otherwise, I may not be able to save you in time next time." The two of them were even more confused. The limitless Sword Saint could not help but stare at the purple Dream Emperor. He asked doubtfully, "Father, is her identity not ordinary?" The Emperor Killer nodded calmly. "She is indeed not ordinary. In terms of seniority, perhaps I should call her senior." The limitless Sword Saint and the merciless Saber Emperor were both stunned. As the divine Emperor of heaven and earth, their father actually had to call that woman senior. With such a high seniority and a woman from the Sea of Constellations, there was only one possibility. Could she be the purple Dream Emperor? The merciless Saber Emperor's throat was dry. He could not believe his eyes. Among the three divine emperors, she was the most low-profile divine emperor. She almost never showed her face and did not interact with any forces in the Sea of Constellations. As for the profound Crystal Palace in the Northern Territory Xuan Nation, there was no mountain peak for guests from the Eastern Sea. This time, for a grand event like the Ancient Dream Altar, not a single person from the Eastern Sea came to participate. This showed how low profile this woman was. Hence, very few people knew her true appearance. However, no one would look down on her just because she was low profile. A divine emperor of heaven and earth born from the enlightenment of a Tao Lord was far stronger than an ordinary divine emperor of heaven and earth. Furthermore, she had a vague relationship with the Tao Lord. The limitless sword god's pupil shrank. He had heard from his father that the purple Dream Emperor was the first divine emperor of heaven and earth in the Sea of Constellations. Her strength was unfathomable. During the calamity of the corpse race, several divine emperors participated in the battle and were all injured. Only the purple Dream Emperor was safe and sound. According to his father's conjecture, during the corpse race's robbery, the strength that the purple Dream Emperor displayed was only a portion of her strength. Recalling how he had humiliated such an existence twice, the limitless sword Saint awoke from his rage and felt a chill run down his spine. It was no wonder that his father had said that slapping them was saving them. If the purple Dream Emperor had really done it herself, would it have been a mere slap? Thinking of this, the limitless sword Saint lowered his head. He did not dare to look the purple Dream Emperor in the eye. Seeing this, the killer emperor was slightly disappointed. In terms of age, he was older than Su Yu. However, in terms of temperament, Su Yu dared to look him in the eye. "Sai, I didn't expect that his backer would be you," the killer emperor said calmly. The purple Dream Emperor said leisurely, "You can say that. He is now one of my people. What is your reason for killing him?" The killer emperor said, "I am merely seeking justice for a good-for-nothing child." The purple Dream Emperor looked weak, but her attitude was extremely firm. She did not allow anyone to object. Whether or not my people owe others justice is not up to your daughter. Neither is it up to you, the Purple Dream Emperor said. It is up to me. Suyu was secretly amused. He had not expected that the Purple Dream Emperor would be so overbearing. Now, the Killer Emperor should have retreated in the face of difficulties, right? The ripples of the line of destiny were very slight. This matter should end here. No, the Killer Emperor grabbed the skull on his neck with his 5 fingers. When I, the Killer Emperor, want to kill someone, neither heaven nor earth can stop me. This is my path of slaughter, and you cannot stop me. He must die. The Killer Emperor pointed at Suyu, his path of slaughter locking onto him from afar. A feeling of being targeted by death immediately filled Suyu's heart. Chapter 17:18. Her tone did not sound angry at all. It was so calm that it was as if she was talking about something very ordinary. It was as if what she said was not out of anger, but that she really wanted to experience the Emperor Killer's massacre Dao. Even the collision of the two emperors' gazes was enough to cause chaos in the nomological chains. A solemn atmosphere swept across the entire North Sea with the two of them at the center. From the small Tao Wu to the emperors of heaven and earth, all living beings sensed the abnormal changes in the world. It was an abnormal sound that would only appear during a great disaster. Every time it appeared, it would cause unimaginable destruction. The feeling of palpitations filled the hearts of all living beings. Their gazes all gathered on the Northern Snow Nation's imperial city as if they had sensed something. That's exactly what I wanted. I also want to see the bottom line of the Purple Dream Emperor's strength. The Emperor Killer burst out with battle intent. The battle between the two emperors was about to begin. Right at this moment, majestic auras rushed toward him. They carried the great power of the great desolation world, intimidating everyone. 4 imposing figures appeared between the two monarchs, cutting off their auras that were on the verge of erupting. Among the 4 figures, the Snow Dragon Emperor emitted a cold aura and said indifferently, "Are the two of you planning to destroy my imperial city?" The battle between the emperors of heaven and earth would definitely destroy one side. The Emperor Killer was expressionless as he stared at the Purple Dream Emperor. Let's continue in another place. The Purple Dream Emperor's face was full of nonchalance, as if he was going to accompany them. "The two of you, why don't we stop here? Don't damage your vitality before the corpse race's calamity arrives." A pavilion master from the Star Pavilion, who was also the female pavilion master who had led the people from the Star Pavilion to the ancient dream altar, shouted. When the words "corpse race's calamity" entered the ears of the Emperor Killer, his expressionless face finally fluctuated. After pondering for a long time, he said, "All right, as long as the Purple Dream Emperor doesn't obstruct my massacre Dao." The female pavilion master looked at the Purple Dream Emperor and bowed. "Purple Dream Emperor, can you not make things difficult for him for the sake of the Star Pavilion?" The Purple Dream Emperor Killer stroked her hair gracefully, like a bamboo leaf fluttering in the wind. However, her reply was full of formless dominance. "No." The female pavilion venerable's expression froze slightly. She looked awkwardly at the Emperor Killer. The Slaughter Sovereign said indifferently, "Sovereign Purple Dream, why do you insist on obstructing my path of killing intent? Do you know what Suyu did?" The Purple Dream Monarch said indifferently, "I don't know, and I don't want to know." Such a simple and direct answer really gave the sovereign realm experts of heaven and earth a headache. It was said that the Purple Dream Monarch had an eccentric personality, and from the looks of it now, it was indeed true. He was too difficult to deal with. "If that's the case, then don't stop me." The Slaughter Emperor said indifferently, "There's no way anyone who I'm determined to kill will survive." After a pause, he looked at the Snow Dragon Divine Warrior. "This matter is related to your beloved disciple, Empress Siwei. She broke her engagement and slept with Suyu. Can you just stand by and watch?" "What?" The sovereigns of heaven and earth were discussing important matters with the chief pavilion lord of the Star Pavilion, and were completely unaware of Empress Ziwei's announcement of love. Hearing that his disciple had done such a despicable thing, the Snow Dragon Emperor couldn't help but be enraged. "Is this true?" The Slaughter Emperor said, "Your beloved disciple admitted it herself." The Snow Dragon Divine Warrior glared at Su Yu and said coldly, "Since you are the representative of the Ancient Corpse faction, then there are some things that you should explain." The expressions of the sovereigns of heaven and earth changed simultaneously. Su Yu, being the representative of the Ancient Corpse faction, was no secret. The matter they were discussing just now happened to be related to the Ancient Corpse faction. It was only natural that Su Yu would be questioned by them. The three Pavilion Lords of the Star Pavilion, including the Lady Pavilion Lord, remained silent and did not stop him. Su Yu indeed needed to be thoroughly investigated. If the sovereigns of heaven and earth of the Star Pavilion were to stand by and watch, then the situation of the three sovereigns of the Sea of Constellations would become two sovereigns against one. The Slaughter Emperor joined forces with the Snow Dragon Divine Warrior and felt much more confident. He said, "Purple Dream Monarch, are you still going to stop me?" The supposed duel between the sovereigns had not ended. Instead, it had worsened. The destruction caused by the battle between the three sovereigns was incalculable. The Purple Dream Monarch's expression was as calm as ever. Of course, with a touch of her fingertip, a purple seedling slowly grew from her fingertip. Waves of powerful primordial energy continued to be released as the seedling grew. Although the Slaughter Emperor and the Snow Dragon Divine Warrior were wary of this woman, it was 2 against 1. After all, so they were much more confident. They released their primordial energy at the same time to fight against the Purple Dream Monarch together. The primordial energy from both sides collided in an instant. Within the area of contact, the faintly discernible fragments of the chain of rules flew wildly, sweeping in all directions. "Get out of the way." The faces of the experts nearby changed drastically. They retreated one after another, afraid that they would be injured by the fragments of the chain of rules. However, the three sovereigns' attacks were too sudden, and the splashing fragments were too powerful. There was no way they could avoid them. Most of the people, including Su Yu, were engulfed by the fragments. Just as the situation was about to be disastrous, a towering giant palm swept across the sky above the Imperial City all of a sudden. The giant palm clawed downwards and grabbed all the splashing fragments of the chain of rules, leaving not a single one behind. At the same time, the violent primordial energy released by the three divine warriors of heaven and earth was also grabbed away. "Let's stop here." A magnificent voice, as ethereal as the great way of heaven and earth, resounded above the Imperial City. The Slaughter Emperor and the Snow Dragon Emperor showed fear in their eyes, even concealing their fear. Su Yu shuddered. When the towering giant palm appeared, it gave Su Yu an extremely terrifying feeling. His whole body, soul, and body were instinctively panicking. Based on Su Yu's experience, unless it was an existence so powerful that it made him suffocate, such a situation would never occur. The pavilion masters of the three great star pavilions bowed respectfully at the same time. "Welcome, Chief Pavilion Master." It was him, the legendary strongest man in the Sea of Constellations, the Star Pavilion's Chief Pavilion Master, the double-crowned Divine Warrior. During the great calamity of the ancient corpses, his name had shaken the world. With a single supreme divine technique, he had purified all the living creatures infected by the ancient corpses, pulling the Sea of Constellations back from the brink of destruction. Swish, black and white rays of light gathered in the sky, forming the shape of a Tai Chi under the contrast. A figure shrouded in yin and yang energies emerged. He was the Star Pavilion's Chief Pavilion Master. No one knew his name, and no one had ever seen his face. Even the three great Pavilion Masters of the Star Pavilion had never had the chance to see the Chief Pavilion Master's face. He had always been shrouded in the light of Tai Chi. Was that the Star Pavilion's Chief Pavilion Master? Su Yu felt a deep sense of pressure. With a great enemy in front of us, it is unwise to fight over personal matters, the Chief Pavilion Master said faintly. The Slaughter Emperor said, "But I have made a killing oath, and it is embedded in my path of massacre. If I do not fulfill the oath, it will damage my path." He had achieved the Emperor's body today because he had fulfilled his oaths time and time again. and embarked on the path of massacre. The chief pavilion master pressed his 5 fingers together and then grabbed at the void. A pitch-black chain was pulled out of the Slaughter Emperor's head through the air. Embedded in the chain was a gray, obscure object. Crack! With the strength of the chief pavilion master's 5 fingers, the obscure object was crushed on the spot. Then he pressed his 5 fingers together again, and the pitch-black chain was pressed into the Slaughter Emperor's head. With a wave of his hand, he controlled the chain of rules. Such a miraculous move shocked all the emperors present. Is this the strength of a double-crowned emperor? The Slaughter Emperor murmured absent-mindedly, and the awe in his eyes deepened. Just based on that one casual move, it was easy for the chief pavilion master to destroy his Slaughter Dao. The killing oath has been dispelled. Any other questions? The chief pavilion master asked. The Slaughter Emperor sighed and said no. The chief pavilion master had personally resolved the conflict between them. How could he say no? What about you? The chief pavilion master looked at the Snow Dragon Emperor. The Snow Dragon Emperor cupped his fists and said, reporting to the chief pavilion master, Suyu sullied my apprentice's innocence, ruined her reputation, and broke off her engagement. Chief pavilion master, please make a decision. The chief pavilion master pondered for a moment and said, they were both willing parties, so there was no sullying. Since it has happened, and there is no turning back, Snow Dragon Emperor, why don't you let me make the decision and let the two of them get married? The Snow Dragon Emperor was speechless. How could this be? He wanted to punish Suyu harshly. So how could he agree to let Suyu off the hook? Or is it that the man and woman had an affair, and I will punish both of them 50 times? The chief pavilion master said. In other words, he was going to punish Empress Wei as well. The Snow Dragon Emperor was secretly annoyed. The chief pavilion master was obviously siding with Suyu, but he dared not show the slightest dissatisfaction, and said, then this matter, let it be. But, the Snow Dragon Emperor said, regarding the affair with the Ancient Corpse faction, we cannot let it go so easily. The several divine warriors of heaven and earth all wore cautious expressions. As long as it was related to the Ancient Corpse faction, even the smallest of details could not be ignored. The chief pavilion master said indifferently, I guarantee that he is not a spy of the Ancient Corpse faction. Huh? The crowd was shocked. The chief pavilion master of the Starry Pavilion was personally vouching for Suyu and proving his innocence. Even Suyu himself could not help but be stunned. Looking at the chief pavilion master, Suyu was puzzled. I can also testify to that. A voice came from the direction of the dazzling Crystal Palace. It was Mo Tsanghai, who had rushed over with a jade pendant in his hand. The Snow Dragon Emperor frowned slightly. What business does a mere pavilion master like you have here? Mu Tsanghai did not say a word. He crushed the jade pendant, and an image floated into the air. At the bottom of the cold lake, snow-white ice and countless frozen coffins. The divine warriors present did not react to the scene in front of them. However, when the ice coffins came into view, everyone's expressions changed. Transformation of the Corpse Clan. The Emperor Sha's expression changed abruptly. His eyes filled with fear as he recalled. How could he dare forget that the most terrifying thing about the Corpse Clan was transformation? They could transform any living creature of any race into the Corpse Clan and turn those experts into their people. It was this nature-defying ability that caused the catastrophe of the ancient Corpse Clan back then. After the battle that year, the 3 great Corpse Kings swore that they would never do anything to harm the Sea of Constellations again. The first was to prohibit the transformation of the ancient Corpse Clan. But the shocking frozen coffins all told them a shocking secret that sent chills down their spines. The ancient Corpse Clan had breached the contract. They had been preparing to make a comeback since many years ago. The Purple Dream divine warrior blinked, her expression solemn. It seems that the chief pavilion master was right. The Corpse Clan cannot be trusted. The catastrophe is coming again, and it is absolutely correct for us to strike first. A few days ago, the chief pavilion master of the Star Pavilion had sent a message to the 3 great heavens and earth divine warriors of the Sea of Constellations, summoning the 3 great pavilion masters of the Star Pavilion. There was only one matter to be discussed. The catastrophe of the Corpse Clan was likely to make a comeback. In the end, it was as he had predicted. The Snow Dragon Divine Warrior looked at Mu Songhai in a hurry. "Where did you come from?" Mu Songhai said indifferently. "You suspect that I am a spy from the Ancient Corpse faction." It was Suyu. Everyone's eyes focused on Suyu, their doubtful gazes dissolving like melting snow. If Suyu was a spy, no one would have the right to call themselves enemies of the Corpse Clan. The Snow Dragon Divine Warrior snorted. "You? How did you get here?" His tone was as if he was examining a criminal. Suyu turned a deaf ear, not saying a word. It was still the Purple Dream Divine Warrior who asked softly, "Suyu, how did you find out?" Only then did Suyu tell her about his encounter with the Ancient Dream Altar in an orderly manner. The Ancient Corpse faction secretly opened up a passage to the Ancient Dream Altar. Everyone was puzzled. What was the purpose of their painstaking effort? Several of the Divine Warriors had ugly expressions on their faces. At that time, the few Divine Warriors present had clearly felt the aura of the Corpse King erupting from within the Ancient Dream Altar when it shattered. It seems that the Corpse King was originally sealed by the faceless back Buddha in the second level of the attic, suppressing it forever. However, someone altered the Ancient Dream Altar and created a rumor that ascending to the second level would allow one to obtain the Path Master Buddha Saraira. In fact, once the 5 Spirit Kings are born, it means that the seal is undone, and the Corpse King will break out of the seal. Upon hearing this, the hearts of the Divine Warriors of heaven and earth sank. For many years, it had been rumored that the second level of the Ancient Dream Altar contained the Path Master Buddha Saraira, which had lured countless people to open up the second level of the attic. Now it seemed that it was all a conspiracy of the enemy. Moreover, they had been fooled. After 30,000 years, the second level of the attic had really been opened, and the Corpse King had been released. The Emperor of Sha's expression was solemn. Would the Corpse King that was personally sealed by the Pathmaster be an ordinary Corpse King? Everyone fell silent. It was as if there was a huge rock pressing on their chests. It was so heavy that they could not breathe. The Chief Pavilion Master was the backbone of everyone. He made a prompt decision and said, "Let's not delay any further. Follow me to the Ancient Corpse faction." Under his leadership, everyone rushed to the mysterious ice space. However, it was already empty inside. There were only a few ice coffins that had not been moved in time. Most of the ice coffins had been taken away. Everyone's expression darkened. The Chief Pavilion Master stood in front of an altar with his hands behind his back. There were 3 bronze coffins there. They were the coffins of the Corpse King. However, it was empty inside. The Chief Pavilion Master's gaze was fixed on the slightly larger bronze coffin in the center. Although his expression could not be seen clearly, everyone could feel his seriousness. Mu Songhai and the few Divine Warriors also looked at the bronze coffin. There was an additional layer of lingering darkness on their faces. The bronze coffin belonged to a special ancient corpse, an Emperor corpse. Back then, the 3 Corpse Kings were besieged. One of them broke through to become an Emperor corpse and immediately went on a rampage. It was only when the Chief Pavilion Master arrived that they were seriously injured and tied. After that, the Emperor corpse swore to seal itself under the mysterious ice crystal lake and never come out. But now, the bronze coffin was empty. He was nowhere to be found. What was even more disturbing was that no one knew when he came out of the coffin and where he was now. Thinking about a bloodthirsty Corpse Clan member whose strength was comparable to the Chief Pavilion Master hiding in the darkness, the Divine Warriors of heaven and earth present all felt extremely uneasy and fearful. The Chief Pavilion Master took a deep breath and said in a low and powerful voice, "There is no need for further discussion. We must suppress Ancient Star and strike first to destroy the Corpse Clan." With this announcement, the Divine Warrior's chest became heavy. It was finally coming. Chapter 17:19. Suyu was shocked. In the Ancient Star, there were 7 bronze coffins, representing 7 strong Corpse Kings. Fortunately, so far, they were still asleep and showed no signs of waking up. Now that the Chief Pavilion Master of the Star Pavilion had recovered and his strength had returned to its peak, it was the best time to destroy the Ancient Star corpses. The only problem was the whereabouts of the three great corpse kings, especially the emperor corpse. Where was the white-haired corpse? The chief pavilion master also understood the problem and said, "The top priority is to find out the whereabouts of the three great corpse kings and the white-haired corpse. The three emperors control the overall situation of the sea of constellations. I hope that you can mobilize the forces under your jurisdiction to investigate." The Purple Dream Emperor, the Shot Emperor, and the Snow Dragon Emperor were aware of the seriousness of the situation and had no objection. Only the Snow Dragon Emperor said, "When I was born, the catastrophe of the ancient corpses had passed, and I had never fought with the three corpse kings. Their appearance, names, and other details are all unknown." The chief pavilion master looked at Suyu and said, "One of the three corpse kings is a female corpse king, named Pearl Corpse King. She is beautiful and is best at illusion." He pointed his finger, and a picture emerged. It was a vast battlefield. Countless blood-eyed corpse race clansmen were engaged in a slaughter with countless living beings. A peerlessly beautiful figure appeared on the screen. She had a face that could turn all living things upside down, and a graceful and peerless figure. Her every move attracted the attention of countless people. Wearing a bright red dress, she stood on the cruel battlefield like a flower dyed with blood. She smiled slightly, and her smile was full of indescribable charm. The coalition army composed of countless creatures was attracted by this smile, fell into a daze, and was controlled by the smile. Then, as she pointed her finger, those attracted creatures suddenly killed their compatriots, and suddenly there were casualties. This was the illusion of the Pearl Corpse King. A smile and a frown could control people. In the picture, there was not only the Star River Overlord, but also a divine warrior of heaven and earth. The Shah Emperor looked away, unable to look directly at the picture, because the divine warrior of heaven and earth who was bewitched in the picture was him. Feeling the eyes of everyone, the Shah Emperor snorted, "I have always remembered this debt, and I have already made a killing oath. If I don't kill her, the way of killing will never improve." The chief pavilion master continued, "The second corpse, the undying boy, has the ability to disguise himself and the undying body." With a tap of his finger, another image of the battlefield appeared. The higher-ups of the Allied army were discussing the next step. One of the famous generals assassinated the commander-in-chief without warning and massacred the higher-ups. When the Imperial Guards arrived, more than half of the upper echelons were dead. That great general revealed his true appearance. He was a creature with an abnormally large head and short limbs. His entire body was dark, and there was an evil and cruel smile hanging from the corners of his mouth. Besieged by so many experts, none of the divine techniques that struck the undying boy caused any damage. Instead, he unscrupulously killed all the higher-ups and left with a blood-drenched laugh. Seeing this scene, everyone's scalp went numb. Even the Purple Dream Sovereign frowned slightly and said, "Of the three great corpse kings, the most troublesome one is probably the undying boy." Even if it was an emperor corpse, no matter how strong he was, the chief pavilion master could counter it. Only the undying boy could change his appearance to an identity that was difficult for anyone to detect. Even if he was detected, he had an undying body, and no divine technique could harm him. Any sovereign would find it difficult to deal with him. The last one is the emperor corpse. The chief pavilion master's tone was much heavier. He was the only one who had fought with the emperor corpse and knew how powerful it was. In the battle back then, he was injured by the emperor corpse and only recovered after 30,000 years. He waved his sleeve, and it was still the scene of the battlefield. What was different was that it was the scene of the chief pavilion master fighting with the emperor corpse. Above their heads, there were two crowns carved from the sun, moon, and stars. Every time they used a divine technique, countless illusions of the sun, moon, and stars would appear, turning the battlefield into a beautiful starry sky. The explosive power of the divine technique was even more destructive. The continent shattered into countless pieces, turning into scattered islands. In the constellation sea, countless ferocious beasts died in the battle. Their corpses sank into the sea, turning into the many islands of today. The South Sea, North Sea, and East Sea were all affected by the divine techniques of the two and were in a state of devastation. Because of the battle between the two, the originally brilliant constellation C's divine energy in the atmosphere had dried up, and the mountains, rivers, and spirit veins had been destroyed. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Although they had been mentally prepared, the battle between the chief pavilion master and the emperor corpse still made them feel awe from the bottom of their hearts. So you looked at the emperor corpse. It was a middle-aged human with broken swords all over his body. Every broken sword was an excellent Emperor Saint artifact when in good condition. He had a head full of red hair, a pair of eyes as black as ink, and his whole body emitted an aura that looked down on the world. Ordinary people standing in front of him would be timid before the battle even began. Even if it was just an image from 30,000 years ago, everyone present felt their scalps go numb. No one, including the sovereign, was willing to meet the emperor corpse. The chief pavilion master pinched his fingers and cut off the image. He asked the snow dragon sovereign with a solemn expression, "How is it? Do you understand?" The snow dragon sovereign nodded. "I will immediately send a message to all the forces in the area." The Purple Dream sovereign and the Shah sovereign also expressed that they would immediately make arrangements. As long as their whereabouts were unknown, the strong men of the constellation C would not dare to rashly attack the ancient stars. Otherwise, it would be quite dangerous for them to fall into a situation where they would be attacked from the back. After this matter was settled, the chief pavilion master said, "During the time when we are investigating the whereabouts of the Corpse King, the Emperor Corpse and the white-haired corpse, all members of the Star Pavilion, listen to my orders." The female pavilion master and the three sovereigns of heaven and earth stepped forward. "We will listen to your orders." The members of the Star Pavilion present also bowed and listened to the orders. Use the power of the major districts of the Star Pavilion to closely monitor the unusual movements of the Sea of Constellation. I think the Sea of Constellation may have a guest. The chief pavilion master looked to the west. The Western Sea was a sea area that no one had ever set foot in the Sea of Constellation. It was also the source of the catastrophe of the ancient corpse, the place where the ancient stars had fallen. Everyone followed his gaze and looked over. Only then did they realize that something was amiss. In the extremely distant sky, a faint purple light floated. An inexplicable evil feeling filled the sky. Several sovereigns, as well as the strong men with extremely good eyesight, looked extremely serious. "It's that ancient star." Mu Songhai's voice was filled with fear. She was one of the few people who had seen the ancient star with her own eyes. That deep, evil purple light originated from the ancient star. When the ancient dream altar collapsed, the ancient star gave birth to a strange phenomenon. The chief pavilion master sighed deeply. It seems that the ancient dream altar is not only suppressing the white-haired corpse, but also the ancient star. We have all fallen into the ancient corpse sex trap. 30,000 years ago, the ancient star fell into the Sea of Constellation. 30,000 years ago, the ancient dream altar suddenly appeared. It was very difficult for ordinary people to link the two together. Now, after careful investigation, they discovered the conspiracy. As expected, the ancient dream altar was supposed to be the seal that suppressed the white-haired corpse and the ancient star. However, many of the strong men in the Sea of Constellation fell into the trap and unknowingly destroyed the seal. Not only did they release the white-haired corpse, but the seal on the ancient star was also broken. The ominous purple light shone in everyone's eyes, causing them to look very embarrassed. No one knew if there would be any changes inside the ancient star at this moment. This added a variable to their attack. Time waits for no man. Everyone, hurry up and make arrangements. Let's end the battle quickly. The chief pavilion master took a deep breath and said. No one dared to hesitate anymore and nodded their heads in agreement. All of you may leave. The participants in the central area of the ancient dream altar will follow me, the chief pavilion master ordered. Everyone was slightly surprised. What did the chief pavilion master want to do by taking away those geniuses? with doubts in their minds. The people of the various factions left the ancient corpse sect, leaving behind a group of geniuses. Su Yu and the merciless Saber Emperor were present. Shui Guanyin, Empress Ziwei, and Lan Yu were in the mysterious Crystal Palace. Wu Xie had been killed by Su Yu's sword. Tian Rilan, Tian Jian, and Old Qin were missing. Huangfu Liang was missing. Su Yu and the merciless Saber Emperor stayed behind. The chief pavilion master looked at the two of them and took a step forward. The next moment, he appeared in the mysterious Crystal Palace with Su Yu and the merciless Saber Emperor. Su Yu was stunned by this miraculous move. The double-crowned emperor was indeed powerful. Immediately after, he waved his hand, and Shui Guanyin and Empress Ziwei were drawn over. Their eyes were blank. They had been transported here without warning. Shui Guanyin looked around. When she saw the chief pavilion master, she immediately bowed. "I am Shui Guanyin. Greetings, chief pavilion master." Empress Ziwei was a cold and arrogant person. When she heard that the person shrouded in yin and yang energy was the legendary peerless figure, she could not help but feel deep veneration. She bowed respectfully. "I am Ziwei. Greetings, chief pavilion master." No need for such formalities. The chief pavilion master waved his hand and smiled. "We are not strangers. We have all trained together. Why the need for formalities?" Everyone present was astonished. Even Su Yu was at a loss. When had he ever crossed paths with the Starry Pavilion's chief pavilion master? Wait, did Su Yu cross paths with everyone here? Or did they train together? Su Yu's eyes narrowed as he stared at the chief pavilion master. An unbelievable thought popped into his mind. Could he be Shui Guanyin? The merciless Saber Emperor and Empress Ziwei were also shocked. They could not understand how they could train together with such a troublemaker. "Have you all forgotten about me so quickly?" His ethereal and grand voice was replaced by a warm and hearty familiar voice that fell into everyone's ears. It's you." Empress Ziwei and the merciless Saber Emperor were the first to react. Shui Guanyin was dumbfounded. She slowly reacted, dumbfounded. "Could it be that you are, The yin and yang energy receded, revealing a youth in a Taoist robe. His figure was tall and straight, and he was cultured and refined, giving others a feeling that he was outstanding. His entire body gave off an extremely comfortable feeling, making it impossible to dislike him. "Huangfu Liang, it really is you." Su Yu took a deep breath, the doubts in his heart finally dispelled. He had long had an indescribable fear of Huangfu Liang, and had a premonition that Huangfu Liang's identity was not ordinary. He had not expected him to be the Starry Pavilion's chief pavilion master, the legendary double-crowned emperor of the Sea of Constellations. Huangfu Liang turned around and smiled. "You really did not disappoint me. You have become one of the 5 spirit kings." Huangfu Liang said mysteriously upon entering the central area. He was looking forward to meeting Su Yu. Su Yu smiled bitterly. "If I had not become one of the 5 spirit kings, I would not have been able to gather the 5 flames and destroy the pavilion's seal. Chief Pavilion Master should be even more disappointed now." "No," Huangfu Liang said with a faint smile. "Do you think I really did not have any ulterior motives for giving you my altar fragment?" The rest of the people were confused. Su Yu had obtained Huangfu Liang's altar fragment because Huangfu Liang had given it to him. Chapter 17:20. Huangfu Liang pretended to be quiet. With a wave of his sleeves, he brought everyone into his secret chamber. Su Yu was full of surprise. The chief pavilion master had disguised his identity and entered the ancient dream altar personally. He must have discovered the ancient corpse faction's conspiracy. Otherwise, why would a dignified double-crowned emperor participate in a trial secretly? But if he was aware of it, why did he hand over his altar fragment to Su Yu, gather 5 torches, and destroy the seal? Su Yu's heart was filled with questions. Chief Pavilion Master, why did you do this? 2 corpse kings and an emperor corpse are dangerous enough. Why did you release the seal of the white-haired corpse and the ancient star? Shui Guanyin was incredulous. Huangfu Liang said, "The seal of the ancient star seals many ancient corpses to prevent them from escaping on a large scale. In fact, it also prevents the outside world from entering on a large scale. If the seal is not broken, destroying the ancient corpses of the ancient star is just empty talk. Therefore, he sat back and watched the ancient corpse faction's conspiracy succeed. In fact, everything was under his control. Empress Ziwei frowned and said, "Since the seal can seal all the ancient corpses in the ancient star, why do we need to release them and fight them to the death?" So you took over the topic and stared at Huangfu Laiyang. "Chief Pavilion Master, you must have some difficulties that you can't disclose, right?" The rest of them looked incredulous. What difficulties could make Huangfu Laiyang do such a crazy thing? Huangfu Laiyang looked at Su Yu and said, "Those who know me are worried about me, and those who don't know me are wondering what I want. Our friendship is shallow. What makes you think that I didn't do this for my own selfish reasons?" Su Yu said, "Intuition tells me that you are not a selfish person." At the ancient dream altar, he peddled the remnant of the Path Master and cheated others of the altar brand. It seemed like an unscrupulous act, but now that he thought about it carefully, with Bai Shiwejian's state of massacre, how lucky were they to be able to leave the ancient dream altar? Could such a person be a selfish person? Ha! Huangfu Laiyang laughed. His face was filled with joy. "My efforts weren't in vain. At least there's someone who understands me." His gaze sharpened as he said, "The reason why the seal was broken is because, even without the ancient corpse sex conspiracy, the altar seal wouldn't have lasted for 10,000 years. After 10,000 years, the faceless Buddha's seal will collapse on its own with the erosion of time. And I can't wait for 10,000 years. At that time, without a double-crowned sovereign standing guard, how will the sea of constellations face the horde of corpses that will break out of the seal?" The people present were not surprised. The faceless Buddha had been dead for too long, and the remaining energy of the seal he left behind could not last forever. It was only a matter of time before it broke. What surprised them was the Chief Pavilion Master's other words. He couldn't wait for 10,000 years? Su Yu's eyes flickered, and he said, "Chief Cabinet Master, 10,000 years later, are you going to travel far away?" Or Huangfu Laiyang shook his Taoist robe, and a part of it slid down his chest, revealing a pitch-black palm print. Inside the palm, there were 5 skulls that emitted a ghostly aura, constantly inhaling and exhaling death aura. Su Yu was very sensitive to death aura, so he could see it clearly. The ghost head mark in the palm was constantly devouring Huangfu Liang's desolate power, creating death aura. At the same time, it was using the death aura to destroy Huangfu Liang's body, gradually turning his death aura into a physical form. This process was very similar to the unique means of the corpse clan. Transformation. This is the palm left behind by the emperor's corpse. Huangfu Laiyang sighed deeply. Everyone was shocked. It was said that the chief pavilion master had just come out of isolation after his injury had healed, and he led the people to kill the ancient star to exterminate the horde of corpses. But the truth was that his injury hadn't healed at all. To be exact, it was even heavier. Under normal circumstances, I would have been transformed into a member of the corpse clan long ago. It took me 30,000 years to suppress the palm print, but it was only temporary. Huangfu Laiyang closed his robe and turned to look at them. "So, do you understand now?" Everyone was inexplicably moved. Huangfu Laiyang wanted to get rid of the horde of corpses before he was transformed into a member of the corpse clan. Su Yu said, "Chief Pavilion Master, why did you tell this to the 4 of us instead of the 3 great pavilion masters and the 3 great emperors?" Huangfu Laiyang stared at Song Ming outside the secret chamber and shook his head. "I can't trust them completely. If the news is leaked and the emperor's corpse finds out that my injury hasn't healed, it will be troublesome." Everyone's expressions turned cold. If the emperor's corpse found out, it would probably lead the horde of corpses out of the ancient star without any scruples. "Then, do you trust us?" Empress Ziwei asked. "Apart from the one with the surname Su, the rest of us are inextricably linked to the various divine warriors of the heavens and earth. What if we leak the news to them?" Huangfu Laiyang laughed mysteriously. "So, what you saw and heard just now will be completely forgotten after you leave this secret chamber." Thinking of how he had easily erased the slaughter oath embedded in the slaughter path, Suyu felt relieved. Chief Pavilion Master, you didn't call us here just to say this, did you? Suyu asked. Huangfu Liang nodded. That's right. I have something I need to ask the strongest young genius of the Sea of Constellations to do. Suyu said, Chief Pavilion Master, please speak. Shui Guanyin, Empress Wei, and the merciless Saber Emperor all stared at the Chief Pavilion Master. What would it be like to explain the cause and effect to them on a special trip? I want the four of you to head to the Taishu faction and retrieve a cauldron for me. Suyu was stunned. Where was the Taishu faction? Shui Guanyin cried out in surprise. The Taishu faction? The Chief Pavilion Master wants us to enter the great Yu Dynasty civilization? Empress Ziwei and the merciless Saber Emperor were shocked. The Great Yu Dynasty was a civilization far superior to the Sea of Constellations civilization. This so-called Taishu faction should be within the Great Yu Dynasty. Huangfu Liang nodded. That's right. Bring my token to the Taishu faction. You will definitely be able to retrieve the cauldron I want. But Shui Guanyin hesitated. But the Taishu faction is a dangerous place. Even a glazed crystal overlord would find it difficult to pass through, let alone the golden overlord. Huangfu Liang took out 4 identical jade talismans and handed one to each of them. The jade talismans contained extremely powerful waves of desolate energy, displaying its immense power. This is my token. It contains a strike of my full power. If the 4 of you work together, there will be no pressure to pass through the dangerous place. Knowing this, Shui Guanyin's expression softened. The strike of the double-crowned divine warrior was not something they would fear, even if the overlord of heaven and earth personally came. Moreover, there had been 4 strikes. This time, there was no pressure at all. Any objections? Huangfu Liang asked. The other 3 did not. To be able to work for the Chief Pavilion Master was an honor they could not ask for. If they succeeded, the benefits would be unimaginable. Only Suyu had a troubled expression. Suyu, please speak your mind. He could see that Suyu had something on his mind. Suyu said, Chief Pavilion Master, I am looking for 2 of my friends. The Chief Pavilion Master said, That's easy. Leave behind their information. I will pass it on to the 3 great divine warriors and the Starry Pavilion. Mobilizing the full power of the Sea of Constellations was much better than Suyu searching alone. Thank you, Chief Pavilion Master. Suyu bowed gratefully. After thinking for a moment, he said, Very well, I will join you on this trip to the Taishu Gate. Shall we depart now? Shaking his head, the Chief Pavilion Master said, This matter is not urgent. You have half a month to prepare. During this time, I can provide you with some help to digest the Path Master's enlightenment from the ancient dream altar. Hearing this, Empress Ziwei, Shui Guanyin, and the Heartless Saber Emperor were all overjoyed. The Path Master's enlightenment was too profound. Although they had obtained it, without the help of a strong martial artist, it would take years to fully digest it. Now, with the help of the number 1 person in the Sea of Constellations, it would undoubtedly be much easier. Suyu's face was filled with gratitude. He alone had obtained more than half of the Path Master's enlightenment. Back then, he had only stepped onto the Bluestone Path and experienced a trace of the Path Master's enlightenment. His swordsmanship had improved by leaps and bounds, and he had comprehended the 4th style of the Demon Sword, the Demon Master's world, overnight. With so many Path Master's enlightenment before him, it was unknown how much progress he would make. If he could comprehend the 5th style, or if he could comprehend the upper class of the soul-devouring realm, his strength would rise to a whole new level. Get ready. The Chief Pavilion Master's body trembled slightly. Both his hands flickered with a ball of Tai Chi light, shrouding the entire room with a profound mystery. Being in the room, Suyu felt indescribably relaxed, as if all the shackles had been removed. At this moment, comprehending anything had become simple. This was Huangfu Liang using his own path to help them clear the path of comprehension. Suyu immediately closed his eyes, and the path of the faceless Buddha automatically appeared in his mind. He absorbed the essence from it, hoping it would help his own comprehension. After waiting for the 4 of them to enter a meditative state, The chief pavilion master withdrew and said, "In terms of comprehension, Empress Ziwei is superior. She should be the first to wake up." After saying this, he left a voice transmission jade in front of the secret room and disappeared. At the end of the East Sea, there was an endless whirlpool, revolving and devouring all the living creatures in the surroundings. This place was also the end of the Sea of Constellations, and it was called the Underworld Net. Rumor had it that this place was formed by the Underworld Net, an exotic beast of heaven and earth, who specialized in devouring the living creatures that passed by. It was indeed so. All the living creatures that passed by here, whether in the water or in the air, could not escape the calamity. Very few of them could successfully cross the sea. Later, it was confirmed that the rumor of the Underworld Net was false. However, under the turbulent whirlpool, there were groups of extraordinarily powerful sea beasts. At the very least, there were bronze overlords, and at the very most, there were glazed crystal overlords. They inhabited this place and devoured the living creatures that passed by. It was extremely dangerous. Ordinary people would never set foot in this place. However, today, the whirlpool was dyed with an unusual blood-red color, and the corpses of ferocious sea beasts tumbled out. At a glance, there were hundreds of corpses of powerful sea beasts floating outside. They all had one thing in common, and that was the most essential parts of their bodies had been devoured. All of a sudden, a figure covered in blood emerged from the whirlpool and landed on one of the corpses. "Ha ha, what great place! The body of 9 gods has evolved again, and my cultivation has also skyrocketed." This person was Gu Taishu, and he cast his gaze at the end of the whirlpool. "It's time to go to the Great Yu Dynasty. If I'm not mistaken, Zhan Wushuang should be there. I really wonder what kind of expression he will have if he sees me like this." A wisp of hatred and mockery appeared in his eyes. Chapter 17:21. In the secret chamber of the Crystal Palace. Sensing that Huangfu Liang had left, Su Yu, who was meditating, opened his eyes slowly. Looking at the other 3 people who were meditating, Su Yu secretly used time acceleration. His comprehension was no longer as mediocre as it used to be after years of tempering by opportunities and treasures of heaven and earth. However, it was not top-notch either. There was still a big gap between him and the 3 heaven rulers of the Sea of Constellations in front of him. If he wanted to completely comprehend the faceless Buddha's comprehension before the Tai Chi light dissipated, he could only use the time acceleration divine technique. 500 times acceleration gave him 500 times more time than Empress Ziwei and the others. Entering the accelerated state, Su Yu immediately entered the comprehension state. The Path Master's comprehension left by the faceless Buddha flowed into his consciousness like a stream. The Path Master's comprehension was exceptionally profound. Su Yu found it difficult to comprehend at first. Everything was obscure and difficult to understand. This was even with Huangfu Liang's help. However, after experiencing the Path Master's dull comprehension twice, Su Yu's tenacity was extraordinary. He took a deep breath and slowly comprehended with great patience. 1 day passed, but Su Yu had spent nearly 2 years. Without sleep or rest, Su Yu constantly comprehended the Path Master's comprehension, breaking through many bottlenecks with the help of the comprehension. In 1 day, Su Yu had only digested less than 1/10 of the comprehension. The progress was extremely slow. In contrast, Empress Ziwei, who was a genius, had only comprehended 1/10 of the comprehension in 1 day. Her comprehension speed was 100 times faster than Su Yu's. However, Su Yu was able to comprehend it patiently. For days later, the demonic energy in Su Yu's body vibrated, as if several demons were roaring fiercely. A hint of joy filled Su Yu's face. The 5th style of the demon sword, the demon born from the heart, was finally comprehended. The power of this style was even greater than the Demon Master's world. With the Demon Master's world, Su Yu could fight against ordinary golden overlords. With this style, even a peak golden overlord like Empress Ziwei might not be a match for Su Yu. Of course, if she digested the Path Master's comprehension and completely comprehended the meteorite ice tribulation, it might be different. After comprehending one aspect, Suyu began to comprehend the breakthrough of the soul-devouring realm that he had failed twice with great expectations. He had been stuck at the small success realm for far too long, and both of his attempts at comprehension had failed due to external interference. This time, he must succeed with the help of the Pathmaster's comprehension. 10 days passed in a flash. Suyu suddenly opened his eyes, which had undergone a shocking transformation. In the depths of his dark brown eyes, there was a pair of very faint, silvery white pupils. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it at all. As Suyu's pupils shrunk, his silver white pupils quickly expanded, covering his dark brown pupils and replacing his previous pupils. His black eyes and silver pupils gave off a mysterious and noble feeling. Those who didn't know him might even think that Suyu was a creature from a third-rate clan. When his silver-white pupils appeared, a sudden clap of thunder broke the silence of the North Sea. The deafening roar woke up many of the sleeping sea beasts. Imperial City. The Snow Dragon Emperor was in the midst of meditating, when a sudden clap of thunder caused his body to tremble, awakening from his meditative state. He teleported to the eaves in a flash and looked up at the sky with surprise in his eyes. What was that thunder just now? To actually be able to affect this emperor's meditation? As the emperors of the world, they were extremely powerful even when they were meditating. Unless they were willing to wake up, the outside world's influence would not be able to interfere with their comprehension. Furthermore, not only was he disturbed, but he was directly awakened. In the South Sea, the Emperor Shah was mobilizing the forces of the entire sea region to prepare for the upcoming battle of the ancient stars. Suddenly, a clap of thunder swept past, burying his voice. The Emperor Shah's expression changed. He suddenly looked up at the sky and said in shock, "What kind of thunder is that? Why have I never seen it before?" There are many types of thunder in the world. The Emperor Shah had never seen that clap of thunder before. EC. Another clap of thunder swept past, shaking the purple dream divine lady who was hidden in the divine bamboo. She looked up, slightly confused. What a strange thunder. It has no source and source, as if it came from nothingness. Huangfu Liang, the chief cabinet master of the Starry Cabinet, who was deep in the Imperial City, was also shocked. He was in another secret room, continuing to suppress the spread of the palm print on his chest. Suddenly, a clap of thunder swept past, shaking his entire body. The desolate power in his palm became unstable, causing the palm print to spread a little. Void divine thunder? How could it appear in our barbaric civilization? Huangfu Liang's expression changed drastically. He came out of the secret room in an instant, looking up at the endless firmament world. He calculated with one hand, divining the secrets of heaven. His brows were sometimes solemn, sometimes relaxed, and sometimes puzzled. This is extremely strange. The void divine thunder that only appears in a 9-star civilization has appeared in the barbaric sea region without any warning. Huangfu Liang divined. This divine thunder would only be beneficial to their battle of the ancient stars, so he was slightly relieved. However, he was still puzzled. After pondering for a while, he raised his eyebrows. Could someone be cultivating a heaven-defying divine technique? This was the only way to explain why the void divine thunder would cross the border and attack. Suyu himself was also shocked by the clap of thunder. Unlike any thunderbolt that he had encountered before, the thunderbolt just now gave Suyu a sense of extreme danger. Faintly, he also felt a threat from the Great Path. Breaking through to the upper tier of the spirit-devouring realm will lead to a threat from the Great Path? What if I cultivate the last level on the bronze board? What about the 5th level? Suyu was shocked. The bronze board only recorded the 5 levels of the heaven's sun gazing at air. The first level was the soul-changing realm. The second level was the soul control realm. The third level was the illusionary soul realm. The fourth level was the soul-devouring realm. When he cultivated to the 4th level, a warning from the Great Path appeared, preventing Suyu from continuing to cultivate. He really didn't know what the consequences would be if he continued to cultivate the 5th level hidden on the bronze board. Ding! As if responding to Suyu, The bronze board made a slight sound, and a brand new technique appeared. Strangely, unlike before, the writing was very vague, and it was impossible to see clearly with the naked eye. Out of curiosity, Suyu used his soul energy to explore, and he could see a little more clearly. However, it was still vague, and he couldn't distinguish it clearly. Strange, Suyu said in surprise. Is it because my soul isn't strong enough? After devouring the souls of a few overlords, his soul had skyrocketed to the level of a silver overlord. With such a powerful soul, he still couldn't see through the writing on the bronze board? If I want to cultivate the 5th level, I must work hard to improve my soul energy, Suyu said to himself. Putting away the green stone board, Suyu controlled his silvery white pupils to shrink back. This was the sign of the upper class of the soul-devouring realm. It was recorded on the green stone board that it could devour the souls of overlords. As for which level of overlords, there was no detailed explanation. However, it was precisely because there was no detailed explanation that it was terrifying. If he wasn't mistaken, the green stone board meant that any overlord's soul could be forcefully devoured by the soul-devouring realm, even if it was a glazed crystal overlord. Thinking of this, Suyu's heart palpitated. If that was really the case, he would have another life-saving talisman. Seeing that the other 3 were still comprehending, Suyu didn't come out immediately. The Pathmaster's comprehension he had obtained was many times more than theirs. If he finished digesting it first, anyone could tell that something was wrong with Suyu. Therefore, Suyu closed his eyes again, pretending to meditate, but his soul entered the 9-jade spiritual pearl. With a move of his heart, 2 lumps of Buddhist light appeared before him. One was the Pathmaster's Buddhist relic that had appeared on the head of the faceless Buddha statue. The other was the golden alms bowl that had fallen out of the stone statue after it had been trampled. The former was the Pathmaster's Buddhist relic that had caused an uproar. Later, it was confirmed by various parties that the existence of this item was a conspiracy of the Corpse Clan to deceive the many Heaven's chosen ones. Unfortunately, the Corpse Clan didn't expect the Pathmaster's Buddhist relic to really exist. However, it didn't exist in the 2-story attic, but on the head of the stone statue. Suyu had obtained it by accident. He believed that if the Corpse Clan saw this item, they would be extremely shocked. Suyu didn't intend to accept the Buddhist past legacy as he fumbled around the Pathmaster's Buddhist relic. As he had said before, it was better to walk out of the path by oneself. Putting down the Buddhist relic, Suyu looked at the golden alms bowl. This item was the strangest. It had been hidden inside the faceless Buddha statue, and it had only appeared when the stone statue had been shattered. The strangest thing was that when Suyu had tried to take this item, he had been pestered by the white-haired corpse. As a result, Suyu was forced to use the Royal Power Dragon Sovereign Sword in a desperate attempt to escape the crisis. This item must have an extraordinary significance to the white-haired corpse. After examining it for a while, Suyu touched the item with his finger. However, he was repelled by a strong force, and his finger bounced off. A slight pain was transmitted to his fingertip. Faintly, demonic energy could be seen coming out of Suyu's fingertip. Is it rejecting me? Suyu murmured. This item had an extremely strong Buddhist nature, and the demonic sword that Suyu had cultivated just happened to be the nemesis of it. Hence, it rejected Suyu's touch. This is a problem. Suyu sighed. He had obtained this item, but he couldn't use it. After putting it away, Suyu's eyes turned to look at it expectantly. In an instant, he came to the cottage. A round, chubby, and adorable creature was faintly discernible in the misty purple mist. It was breathing regularly, scratching itself with its hose from time to time. It was very cute. Is it still sleeping? Suyu couldn't help but be disappointed. When he had forcibly used the Royal Power Dragon Sword, he had swallowed the Dragon Pearl. As a result, the excessive divine dragon power had filled Suyu's limbs and bones, and he was about to explode. It was the little Kylan who had sensed that Suyu was in danger and had thrown the heavenly orchid silver bamboo's silver fruit out of the 9-jade spiritual pearl. It had absorbed the divine dragon power in time, and Suyu had been spared. He had thought that the little Kylan had woken up, but it was still asleep. Su Yu stroked its head, his eyes gentle and affectionate. In terms of closeness, the little Kylan had been with him for almost half of his martial arts career. It could be considered one of the closest people to him. As if it had sensed something in its dream, the little Kylan hummed a few times and spat out an unusually crisp young girl's voice. "Don't touch me. I hate you." Su Yu was stunned. It could speak. In the past, the little Kylan had not inherited any language and could only use body language. How could it speak Kylan's language now? After sleeping for so many years, its body had really changed a lot. Next, to Su Yu's surprise, an unusual force burst out of the little Kylan's body, and Su Yu's palm on its head bounced off. Su Yu's expression changed. Prehistoric force? That's right. It was the prehistoric force. Chapter 17:22. Su Yu's eyes were filled with disbelief as he looked at the small Kylan. Could it be that after sleeping for so many years, the little Kylan had attained the realm of the divine warrior of heaven and earth? So you couldn't help but think about how it was born to refine elixirs and divine weapons. Whose inheritance did the little Chelan inherit? He could only wait for the little Kylan to wake up before asking. In less than a year, it would wake up. Su Yu withdrew his hand from the 9-jade spiritual pearl. After his soul returned to his body, Su Yu discovered that the people in the secret chamber had woken up one after another. Blood Guanyin stared at Su Yu without blinking and asked with a smile, "You've finally woken up? How much has the Tao Master digested?" The emotionless saber monarch also cast his gaze over. He wanted to compare who was superior and who was inferior. Even Empress Ziwei snorted coldly and turned her head away, but her ears perked up. The current Su Yu was one of the 5 spirit kings, who had eliminated all of them. Moreover, he had the Purple Dream Emperor as his backing. Hence, who would not be concerned about his cultivation level. Su Yu said, "About 10%? In fact, under the state of time acceleration of 500 times, he had already been meditating for a whole 20 years. With the help of Huangfu Liang's yin-yang light, he had completely digested all the Daelord's comprehension. Blood Guanyin heaved a sigh of relief and lightly patted her chest. "That's good. You are too smart. If your comprehension was that scary, I would be inferior to you." Su Yu smiled and did not speak. She wasn't the only one who had been outshone. Even Empress Ziwei had been outshone. With the upper tier of the soul-devouring realm, even the Crystal Overlord would have to retreat if he encountered Su Yu. Empress Ziwei would not be able to defeat Su Yu with the meteorite ice tribulation alone. What a waste. If it was given to me, with my comprehension ability, I would be able to comprehend at least 20%. Emotionless Saber Monarch snorted disdainfully. He admitted that his knife techniques were not as powerful as Su Yu's sword techniques, but he was very confident in his level of comprehension. Empress Ziwei looked at him with a hint of suspicion in her eyes. "Only 10%? Then you have to be careful for the rest of the journey. Do whatever you want." Su Yu shrugged his shoulders and ignored the threat in her words. When the cultivation ended, half a month had passed. A gentle voice rang out. "Hee, it seems like all of you have gained something." Huangfu Liang appeared and said with a smile. The 4 of them greeted him. Su Yu said, "Thank you for your help, Chief Cabinet Master. I will definitely try my best to retrieve the Cauldron from the Taishu faction. I hope Chief Cabinet Master can tell me the details of the Cauldron." Huangfu Liang's expression turned solemn as he said, "There's no time to lose. Prepare to depart." He waved his sleeves, and a piece of tree bark appeared in each of their hands. The bark contains all the information you want, including the route, the location of the Great Void Gate, and the details of the Cauldron. "If you're ready, then let's go," Huangfu Liang said. The 4 of them were slightly startled. In such a hurry, they didn't even have time to bid farewell to their own forces. Huangfu Liang said, "Don't worry, I have already informed them. The 4 of you will carry out this Pavilion Master's secret mission." Their trip was a secret. Thinking to this point, the 4 of them nodded in agreement and left. Huangfu Liang, on the other hand, formed a seal with his hands and shot out an obscure seal at the backs of the 4 of them. The 4 of them shuddered, faintly feeling that something was missing from their bodies. "Strange. Why do I seem to have forgotten something? Blood Guanine turned around in a daze and saw the chief pavilion master shrouded in yin and yang qi. The rest of them felt the same way, confused. The merciless saber emperor said blankly, I seem to remember seeing the chief pavilion master's true appearance, but why can't I remember? Empress Yi was stunned. He seemed to have told us some sort of secret, but I just can't remember it. In the secret chamber, the secrets that Huangfu Liang had told them had all been erased by him. Only Suyu nodded blankly without batting an eyelid. Oh, I seem to have forgotten something as well. But when no one was looking, Suyu's eyes glowed with a strange light. Huangfu Liang watched the four of them leave, looking at Suyu's back, slightly surprised. Strange, why does my secret soul technique seem to have been swallowed by something when it landed on him? Thinking for a moment, Huangfu Liang shook his head. I must be thinking too much. What kind of divine technique could have swallowed my secret soul technique? Suyu and the others stepped onto the path of the Great Void Gate. Inside the starry pavilion, some seemingly insignificant changes had taken place. At the Red Leaf Pavilion, Pavilion Master Lili sat calmly on the armchair with a solemn expression. On both sides were the talented fighters of the Red Leaf Pavilion. Ever since Bai Xuejian, Shan Xiong, and Wei Lv had fallen, there were no more fighters among them. Lan Yu. Lili closed his eyes, his expression cold. Lan Yu walked out, her expression deeply uneasy. She said carefully, Pavilion Master, please instruct me. Lili slowly opened his eyes, looking at her. Suyu has been put in an important position by the Chief Pavilion Master to carry out a secret mission. Do you know what this means? Lan Yu's mouth was bitter. What did it mean? It meant that Suyu was deeply trusted by the Chief Pavilion Master. Suyu could influence the Chief Pavilion Master's decision with just a few words, especially regarding the internal affairs of the Starry Pavilion. Thinking back to all the times she had known Suyu, Lan Yu was filled with regret. She had met Suyu first, they could have become friends, and she could have followed Suyu to the top. But in the end, she had abandoned Suyu step by step. Now, she could only watch as Suyu soared into the sky and his name spread throughout the sea of constellations. But she was still a nobody. I know. Suyu will most likely return to the Starry Pavilion, Lan Yu replied. Li Li's expression was indifferent. You don't know. Lan Yu raised her head, slightly confused. Do you remember how you treated Suyu at the ancient dream altar? Lily said coldly. You colluded with outsiders and tried to kill Suyu. Do you know your crime? Lan Yu hurriedly explained. Pavilion Master, I didn't shut up. Lily slammed the table and stood up. You're still trying to defend yourself. You sold your body to gain the right to enter the Central Region. You've disgraced the Red Leaf Pavilion. Lan Yu's face was flushed. Feeling the scornful gazes of her fellow pavilion members, her face burned. You don't know how to repent, and you colluded with outsiders to harm the former members of the Starry Pavilion. The more Lily spoke, the harsher his voice became. In the end, he was completely furious. The Red Leaf Pavilion does not have a disciple like you. Huh? Lan Yu understood the hidden meaning behind his words and immediately knelt down to plead for mercy. Pavilion Master, I know I was wrong. Please give me a chance to turn over a new leaf. There is no chance to turn over a new leaf, Lily said coldly. Yuan Tian, send Lan Yu back to her home, Juice Cloud Island. No one is allowed to enter the Starry Pavilion again. Lan Yu had been expelled. The reason was simple. Suyu was powerful now. Regardless of his own abilities, the backing of the Purple Dream Divine Warrior, or the Starry Pavilion Master, he was not someone a mere Pavilion Master could provoke. In order to avoid trouble, he could only expel Lan Yu. Pavilion Master, you can't. Lan Yu cried out. But Lily waved his sleeves and sent Lan Yu flying out of the Great Hall. Scram! The cold rebuke caused Lan Yu's body to turn cold. Yuan Tian walked out and stood in front of her. He made a gesture of invitation with an expressionless face. Ninth sister, please. Lan Yu lifted her eyes and looked at the group of people in the great hall that she was familiar with in the past, the Deputy Pavilion Masters and the Pavilion Masters. They used to be extremely passionate, but now they were all cold to her, as if they were strangers. A great humiliation welled up in her heart. She had never thought that one day she would be chased out of the starry pavilion. Creak. She clenched her fists and secretly clenched her teeth. Lowering her head, she left the crystal palace in a daze. She left the imperial city and came to a desolate land of ice and snow. She didn't even turn her head and said, "Eighth brother, you don't have to send me off anymore. I will return to my hometown myself. Don't worry about me returning to the starry pavilion. I don't have that face." An evil smile appeared on Yuan Tian's face. "Junior sister, I think you misunderstood. The pavilion master secretly instructed me not to send you back to your hometown, but to send you on your way." "What?" Lan Yu abruptly turned her head and said angrily, "Pavilion master, he wants to kill me." Hee. The pavilion master just doesn't want to leave a threat outside, so he wants to eliminate the root of the problem. Yuan Tian approached her. Lan Yu said angrily, "I have been expelled from the starry pavilion. Although the sea of constellations is vast, which force would dare to take me in? How can a person like me threaten the pavilion master?" Yuan Tian looked at her. She was as beautiful as a fairy in the clouds. A cool breeze blew against her white veil, gently fluttering her beautiful hair. A trace of greed quickly flashed across his eyes. "Your beauty is the biggest threat," Yuan Tian said. "You can use your beauty to lure an expert like the heartless saber monarch. Who knows, you won't lure an even stronger backer and become the pavilion master's mortal enemy. So, junior sister, rest in peace." Yuan Tian took a step forward, his little finger shooting out a strong divine power and pointing it between Lan Yu's eyebrows. Lan Yu shouted and retaliated with an orchid palm. Yuan Tian sneered. His thumb moved, and his right leg lashed out like a whip. Lan Yu was kicked away and crashed into a big tree. Her mouth was full of blood. Lan Yu smiled bitterly. She had been working for fame and fortune all her life, but in the end, she was going to die in the hands of her former sibling. I can't accept this. I am Lan Yu's daughter. Why do you have to do this to me?" Lan Yu leaned against the tree and let out a furious roar. Yuan Tian laughed strangely. "It's easy to say that you don't want to die. That is, if you're willing to join us." Lan Yu was stunned. "Us?" Yuan Tian smiled strangely and patted the space ring. Dozens of level 1 cavern world, venerable, ferocious dog-type beasts jumped out. Corpse-loving dogs? Lan Yu was terrified. When she and Yuan Tian rushed from the pavilion branch to the headquarters, they were besieged by 10 corpse-loving dogs. It was Su Yu who helped them out. At that time, she wondered why there were corpse-loving dogs near the Starry Pavilion's main pavilion. It turned out that those corpse-loving dogs were released by Yuan Tian himself. "Who are you?" Lan Yu asked in shock. Yuan Tian laughed strangely and took out a black iron plate. There was a clear pattern carved on it. A coffin. The Ancient Corpse Sect. Lan Yu was shocked. "How can you be a member of the Ancient Corpse Sect?" Yuan Tian laughed. "It's not just me. The Ancient Corpse Sect has long spread its influence into all the major forces. There is even a great figure that you can't imagine. He is also a member of the Ancient Corpse Sect." "What?" Lan Yu's hair stood on end. Over the years, the Ancient Corpse Sect had quietly grown so strong that it had infiltrated all the forces in the Sea of Constellations. Chapter 1723. Lan Yu seemed to be struggling. The Ancient Corpse Sect was the common enemy of all living beings. Joining them was tantamount to betraying the Sea of Constellations and going against all living beings. However, she recalled what had happened in the ancient dream altar. After the heartless Saber Emperor had toyed with her, he had casually abandoned her. She recalled how Cabinet Master Li had chased her away like a wild dog in order to curry favor with Su Yu. The struggle in her eyes quickly subsided and was replaced by a cold glint. "I'll join you," Lan Yu said resolutely. "Papa," Yuan Tian chuckled. "Congratulations, junior sister. You've made the right choice." She looked at the astonishingly beautiful Lan Yu and said, "I believe that after junior martial sister enters the Ancient Corpse Sect, you will definitely be put in an important position." Finished speaking, Yuan Tian brought Lan Yu and left the imperial city, entering a desolate snowfield. After a long and arduous journey, They arrived at a deserted ancient temple. Lan Yu followed Yuan Tian inside, and a shocking scene unfolded before her eyes. In the ancient temple, two rows of experts with terrifying auras stood side by side. Many of them were covered in corpse aura, but some of them were actually living beings from the Sea of Constellations. The Mansion Master of the Northern Seas, Three Murders Mansion, the Cave Master of the mysterious Nether Cave of the Eastern Sea, the South Sea Mighty God Sect Master. Lan Yu was shocked. These people were all the leaders of the famous forces in the Sea of Constellations. Not long ago, he had attended the birthday of the Snow Dragon Emperor. However, at this moment, he was with the Corpse Clan. On the throne at the very top sat an imposing figure in a cloak. His eyes were cold and filled with a disdainful spirit. His entire body released an aura that caused all living beings to tremble. The two rows of experts below him were as silent as cicadas in winter. White-haired corpse, Lan Yu exclaimed. The portrait of the white-haired corpse had already spread throughout the Sea of Constellations. The majestic figure covered in white fur was the mysterious white-haired corpse that the Sea of Constellations was searching for. No wonder the white-haired corpse had escaped without a trace. With so many spies helping him, who could find him? How dare you? The palace master of the Three Murders Mansion snorted coldly and casually waved his hand to release a powerful divine power that struck Lan Yu's knees. Lan Yu groaned. Her knees softened, and she knelt on the ground. She said hurriedly, "This concubine was rude. Please forgive me." She felt uneasy. "Raise your head." An indifferent and indisputable voice floated over. Lan Yu raised her head as she was told. Her pretty and fairy-like face entered the eyes of the man on the throne. A stunning beauty. The white-haired corpse revealed an expression of admiration. He got down from his throne and walked in front of Lan Yu. He stretched out his hand. "I need a queen. Are you willing?" Lan Yu couldn't believe her ears and said, "I'm willing." She couldn't believe that she was so lucky to be chosen by a divine warrior of heaven and earth. While everyone was envious, the white-haired corpse held Lan Yu's hand and ascended the throne. Lan Yu was pleasantly surprised. It was as if she was standing above countless people. However, she didn't notice the strange look that flashed through the white-haired corpse's eyes when he looked at her. "My queen, do you have any unfulfilled wishes?" the white-haired corpse asked. Lan Yu said without hesitation, "I want to kill 2 people." "Speak," the white-haired corpse said. Lan Yu's eyes were filled with hatred. First, the second son of the Southern Sea Emperor Killer, the heartless Saber Emperor, must die. Secondly, the former member of the Starry Pavilion, Suyu, must die as well. The white-haired corpse said, "What's the reason?" "The heartless Saber Emperor lied to me. He deserves to die." Lan Yu recalled the humiliation of being abandoned that day. She would never forget it. She once said that she would make the heartless Saber Emperor regret it. "What about Suyu?" the white-haired corpse asked. Lan Yu opened her mouth, but found that there was no reason. From the beginning to the end, Suyu had never done anything wrong to her. He had even saved her twice. But why didn't she want to see Suyu alive? Only she knew that she didn't want to see Suyu live a good life. The more glorious Suyu was, the more it showed how stupid it was for her to distance herself from Suyu, and the more she regretted it. If Suyu didn't die, there would be a pit in her heart that she couldn't cross. "Approved," the white-haired corpse said. "I will kill the whole family of the Emperor Killer. As for Suyu, humph, even if the queen doesn't kill him, I have a reason to kill him." After a pause, the white-haired corpse waved his hand. A wisp of powerful aura descended. Not only was his corpse energy heavy, but there was also an extremely dense death energy. What was even more shocking was the cultivation of the glazed crystal overlord. According to the news from the Emperor, Suyu and a few other heaven rulers have been sent by that old man Huangfu Liang to carry out a secret mission. If I'm not mistaken, they should be sent to the Taishu faction, the white-haired corpse said. "Death Sword, go there personally and bring back Suyu's head." "Yes." The youth bowed and retreated. If Suyu were here, he would definitely recognize this man covered in death and corpse energy. He was none other than the glazed crystal overlord youth who was adept at death energy attacks in the inn. Half a month later, in the East Sea. A bronze carriage cut through the sea at an alarming speed, heading straight for the end of the East Sea. The atmosphere in the carriage was a little strange. Su Yu and Shui Guanyin were interested in learning about martial arts and the customs of the Taishu faction. The Heartless Saber Emperor and Empress Ziwei were silent. The former and Su Yu were not on the same page, so they naturally wouldn't speak. Empress Ziwei felt awkward, as if there was a knife at her back. Her face was flushed with a strange red. Empress Ziwei, are you sick? Why do you look so strange? Shui Guanyin looked at her suspiciously. How could she not look strange? Half a month ago, it was here that Su Yu had torn her clothes to shreds, recording a shameful scene that she would never forget for the rest of her life. Empress Ziwei looked as if her thoughts had been seen through. She anxiously shouted, "What nonsense are you talking about? Su Yu didn't do anything to me." Halfway through her sentence, Empress Ziwei hurriedly shut her mouth. Shui Guanyin was dumbfounded, her eyes darting back and forth between Su Yu and Empress Ziwei. Her suspicions were thick. At that moment, the Heartless Saber Emperor snorted softly. Adulterous couple. He and his brother, the Wuji Sword Saint, had seen the carriage shake that day. Thud! As the group was conversing, the bronze carriage suddenly jolted. Su Yu raised his brows, immediately activating the detection function to spy on the situation outside. He saw that the bronze carriage had accidentally gotten stuck on the floating corpse of a giant, ferocious beast. A golden overlord-level azure wave beast? Empress Ziwei came over, frowning slightly. This beast is extremely difficult to hide. Even the crystal overlord can forget about catching it. How could it be killed? Moreover, the wound is so strange, as if the essence of its flesh and blood has been devoured. Su Yu's face darkened slightly. It was the same scene. A year ago, a body of 9 gods had appeared in the Jinshin Ocean. It had wreaked havoc in the ocean, slaughtering many large and small forces. Similar situations had occurred to many living creatures. The essence of their corpses had been devoured clean. The difference was that the last time it appeared, it was only a level 1 Cavern World Master. In just a year, even the Golden Overlord had been killed. The growth of that body of 9 gods was truly terrifying. To prevent the people in the carriage from worrying, Su Yu did not mention it. He turned off the detection function and drove the bronze carriage away. A few days later, at the end of the East Sea, the easternmost part of the Sea of Constellations, the bronze carriage stopped at the edge of the East Sea. The people present stood on the carriage, staring at the scene before them in shock. The area they were in was surging with waves. But one step further, and it was a world of dead silence, darkness, and cold nothingness, boundless as far as the eye could see. So this is what it looks like outside the Sea of Constellations, Blood Guanyin exclaimed. Empress Ziwei snorted coldly. What's so strange about it? The civilization of the Sea of Constellations is surrounded by nothingness, and it is surrounded by nothingness. If you step out recklessly, you will die. Blood Guanyin was unconvinced. Who doesn't know that? I also know that to leave the civilization of the Sea of Constellations, the only way is to ride the void meteorite. Humph. Then do you know that only the strongest person can ride the meteorite? Empress Ziwei said proudly. What are you so proud of? Blood Guanyin stomped her feet in dissatisfaction. When Su Yu heard this, he understood everything. On the way, he had asked Blood Guanyin about the Dayu Empire. Between 2 civilizations, there was usually a terrifying nothingness. Even the Path Masters, although they could control the Great Path rules and were not afraid of the nothingness, they might not dare to stay in the nothingness for long. Because in the nothingness, there were too many terrible things that had existed since the creation of the world. For example, the Void Divine Thunder. If struck by this thunder, even the Path Masters would be reduced to ashes in an instant. There was no exception. Therefore, the communication between civilizations was conducted through the meteorites in the nothingness. The void meteorite was one of the few substances that were not afraid of the nothingness. For the sake of communication between civilizations, the meteorites that fell into civilized worlds were all refined into meteorites that could be controlled by humans. After landing on a meteorite, one could control it to travel through the nothingness. But the premise was that the person controlling the meteorite could only be one person, and it had to be the strongest person on the meteorite. If Su Yu and the others wanted to control the meteorite, it had to be controlled by the strongest person. Otherwise, the meteorite would not be able to operate. Among them, the strongest person was undoubtedly Empress Ziwei. A hint of arrogance appeared at the corner of Empress Ziwei's mouth. She glared at Blood Guanyin provocatively, as if saying, "If you have the ability, fight with me for the right to control the meteorite." Blood Guanyin was furious, but there was nothing she could do. The difference in strength between the two was extremely great. Swoosh! Not long after they approached the edge, a meteorite with a surface full of holes and a diameter of only 100 feet flew over. The terrifying nothingness was nothing in front of the meteorite. Empress Ziwei was the first to jump up, followed by Su Yu. He looked around curiously and found a crystal plate in the center of the meteorite. After the four of them jumped up, the crystal plate immediately displayed information. For passengers, please come forward one by one to test your combat potential. Su Yu was slightly surprised. He had also thought about this question. How did the meteorite determine which of the people who ascended had the strongest cultivation? He had thought there would be some kind of simple test. He did not expect it to be about potential. While Su Yu was curious, the merciless Saber Emperor walked over first and stood with both feet on the crystal plate. The crystal plate shot out a ball of green light, sweeping across the merciless Saber Emperor's body as if performing a comprehensive examination. Soon, a row of tiny numbers appeared below the crystal plate. Combat potential 8,000. Seeing this number, Blood Guanyin was shocked. 8,000? Before I left for the ancient dream altar, the pavilion had tested me. My combat potential is only 5,000. Empress Ziwei raised her brows. Not bad. You're almost catching up to me before the ancient dream altar. The merciless Saber Emperor's performance before this could not be considered powerful, but after digesting the Pathmaster's comprehension, he had become so powerful that he was almost catching up to Empress Ziwei. That opportunity had helped the merciless Saber Emperor tremendously. A hint of excitement appeared on his face. Throughout the sea of constellations, there were very few strong people of the same generation who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. He could not help but be overflowing with joy, his mood unprecedentedly open. When he looked at Su Yu, the corners of his mouth curled up, his eyes filled with fighting spirit. He was extremely unwilling to be defeated by Su Yu. Now that his combat power had skyrocketed, he was extremely confident that he could win if they were to fight again. Me too. Blood Guanyin was eager to try. Seeing that the merciless Saber Emperor had made such shocking progress, she did not want to fall behind. She wanted to try and see what her combat power was after digesting the Pathmaster's comprehension. With a light tap of her feet, she landed gracefully on the crystal plate. As the green light swept across her body, Blood Guanyin nervously pinched the corner of her sleeve, staring unblinkingly at the number that was about to appear. The merciless Saber Emperor was also paying close attention, not daring to miss it. Ding! With a crisp sound, words appeared on the crystal plate. Combat potential value 9,000. Yay! Blood Guanyin cheered excitedly. Her combat potential value had soared from 5,000 to 9,000, almost doubling. With a difference of 1,000 combat power, she had completely suppressed the merciless Saber Emperor. She heaved a long sigh of relief, her small face filled with joy. She returned with satisfaction. Her gaze swept toward Empress Ziwei. Her previous combat potential value was 8,000, but the current Blood Guanyin had surpassed her at that time. Humph! Empress Ziwei snorted in disdain. It's just 9,000. Her body flickered, appearing on the crystal plate. The green light swept across her body, very carefully. Blood Guanyin and the merciless Saber Emperor stared intently, afraid to miss the slightest detail. Ding! When the green light finished scanning, the corresponding potential value appeared on the crystal plate. Combat potential value 24,000. Crack! In shock, the merciless Saber Emperor crushed the space storage device he was carrying. His mouth was dry as he muttered, 24,000. Blood Guanyin was motionless, frozen in place, clenching her fists in dissatisfaction. What a perverted woman. So you also clicked his tongue. From 8,000 combat power to 24,000 in one go, it had tripled. After digesting the Path Master's enlightenment, her improvement was ridiculous. Empress Ziwei walked down proudly, like a crane among chickens. She said coldly, "There are no objections to me controlling the Siderite, right?" The merciless Saber Emperor was convinced. "Apart from you, no one else is qualified." But Blood Guanyin was not convinced. She pulled Suyu over. "Humph, it's not over yet. Suyu hasn't scanned it yet." The merciless Saber Emperor was disdainful. "You haven't even digested 10% of the Path Master's enlightenment. How much improvement can you make? You can't even compare to me." But Empress Ziwei glared at Suyu, a faint smile on her face. "Aren't you quite impressive? Let me see how capable you are." Suyu said, "There's no need. If you like controlling the Siderite, you can do it." Empress Ziwei's smile deepened. "Cut the crap. Test it now. If you don't participate in the test, the Siderite will not be activated." "Is that so?" Suyu stood up helplessly. Chapter 17:24. Hoping to get lucky, Suyu stepped onto the crystal plate. Creak! The powerful green light scanned from his feet up, penetrating his entire body and scanning every part of his body. Suyu felt as if his entire body was being seen through. Even his soul was being scanned, but could not penetrate further. When the scan was complete, a line of numbers appeared on the crystal plate with a ding. Battle potential 240,000. Suyu's face darkened. Wasn't the green light's examination too detailed? 240,000 was 10 times more powerful than Empress Ziwei's. If nothing out of the ordinary happened, it must have taken into account the upper tier of the spirit-devouring state, which was why it was far higher than Empress Ziwei's. Fortunately, the green light only scanned the body and could not examine and use divine weapons. Otherwise, with the Royal Dragon Sword, the value would definitely exceed 1,000,000. But even so, it was enough to shock everyone present. The merciless Saber Emperor gasped. "Is there a mistake? 240,000? Not 24,000, not 24,000, but 240,000. Shui Guanyin was stunned as well, unable to comprehend how 240,000 battle potential was stacked. Empress Ziwei was also shocked. How could it be the battle potential of a peak overlord? Based on her understanding, 24,000 was the battle potential of a golden overlord, while the battle potential of a dark crystal overlord did not exceed 120,000. 240,000 was the battle potential of a peak overlord. Apart from half-step worldly sovereigns, very few people in the overlord realm could surpass 240,000 battle potential value. Suyu was merely a bronze overlord, but his battle potential was as high as 240,000. Empress Ziwei could not help but wonder if the crystal plate's examination was unfair. But thinking about it, when she had fought Suyu head-on at the Crystal Palace, not only had she not been able to suppress him, she had been subdued by him. After comprehending the Path Master's comprehension, it was not impossible for his battle potential to soar again. How much of the Path Master's comprehension have you actually digested? Empress Ziwei stepped forward and questioned fiercely. Shui Guanyin and the merciless Saber Emperor finally understood. If they still believed Su used 10%, they would be fools. Being stared at by 3 pairs of eyes, Su Yu smiled bitterly. If he had known there would be such an examination, he would not have concealed it. Cough, cough, about 50%, Su Yu said. Hiss! Blood Guanyin sucked in a cold breath and said, 50%? The Daylord's comprehensions you've obtained are 5 times ours to begin with. If you digest 50% of it, then wouldn't that mean that you've digested 5 times ours? The merciless Saber Emperor was deeply shocked. He had thought that after he had digested the comprehension, his abilities would be far above Su Yu's. Who would have thought that Su Yu would hide everything and only reveal the tip of the iceberg? The Daylord comprehension was 2.5 times that of his, and the explosive increase in his strength would definitely be astonishing. However, even so, his battle potential value was as high as 240,000, which was still incredible. unless Su Yu had cultivated the most top-notch divine technique in the sea of constellations. Empress Ziwei gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. At first, he thought that he finally had a chance to snatch back the shameful image from Su Yu's hands with force. Who would have thought that Su Yu's abilities would increase to such a terrifying extent? Sirs, we shouldn't delay any longer. Let's quickly set off. Su Yu jumped off the crystal plate. After the four of them had finished their examination, a red beam of light shot out of the crystal plate and shone on the space between Su Yu's brows. Some information appeared in Su Yu's mind. It was the method to control the fallen stars. There wasn't just one type of control method, but almost 10,000 types. There are so many control methods? Su Yu was astonished. After reading it carefully, he discovered that each method of manipulation was written in a different language. So, the method to control the fallen stars of the 10,000 clans is in the fallen stars. Su Yu was a little surprised. Then, how powerful is the force that refined the fallen stars into a transportation tool? Collecting 10,000 types of the divine clan's control methods of the fallen stars was truly shocking. Su Yu couldn't help but ask, Little Een, isn't our sea of constellation civilization that refined the fallen stars? Shui Guanyin was shocked. How could it be our civilization? Even the Dayu civilization couldn't have refined such a fallen star. Then who is it? Su Yu was extremely curious. What kind of powerful force could unify the control methods of 10,000 clans? The Ecliptic Palace, Shui Guanyin said with admiration in her eyes. The Ecliptic Palace. Su Yu had read many books of the Great Beginning Realm, but he had never seen a force like the Ecliptic Palace in any of them. What's the background of that force? Su Yu asked. Shui Guanyin shook her head. I don't know. The only thing I know is that it's a 6-star civilization that rules over countless civilizations. The Path Master of the Faceless Buddha is from the Ecliptic Palace. A 6-star civilization? What kind of prosperous super civilization was that? What surprised Su Yu even more was that the Faceless Buddha was from there. What's so surprising about that? Empress Ziwei snorted. It's not just the Faceless Buddha. Even the Path Master who enlightened the Purple Dream Divine Warrior is from the Ecliptic Palace. Those who are qualified to join the Ecliptic Palace are all Path Master level supremes. Su Yu's pupil shrank. A force composed entirely of Path Masters? Wouldn't that force be powerful enough to make the entire Great Beginning Realm tremble? Shui Guanyin wrinkled her nose. Humph, you seem to be the only one who understands karma. Then tell me. Empress Ziwei's eyes narrowed. Seeing that the two were arguing again, Su Yu hurriedly activated the fallen star and set off. The 10,000 clans had different ways of controlling the fallen stars. There were high and low levels. The higher the level of the race, the more advanced their control methods were. For example, there was a race called the Heavenly Wings, which belonged to the top 3 races. The meteors they controlled with their meteor manipulation method were not only fast, but also agile. In contrast, the control methods of the lower 3 races were rather backward. The fallen stars they controlled were not only extremely slow, but also very clumsy. Once they encountered an unexpected situation, they couldn't even dodge in time. Sigh, the human race is really backward among the 10,000 races. Su Yu sighed softly. Because Su Yu was proficient in the languages of the various races, in theory, he could use all the control methods recorded in the Fallen Star without any pressure. After a moment's consideration, Su Yu chose the control method of the human race. There were countless experts in the Dayu civilization. In an unfamiliar place, it was best not to expose his proficiency in the various languages of the different races. The control method of the human race was very easy to learn. Su Yu mastered it with just a few thoughts. He weaved a seal with one hand and pressed it on the crystal plate. The fallen star immediately vibrated with a loud rumble and moved toward the boundless dark void. Empress Ziwei's face immediately darkened. Haven't you learned a few languages of the different races? There was no other reason than that the speed of the fallen star was too slow, far slower than the bronze horse. The merciless saber emperor's expression was also ugly. If this goes on, when will we reach the Dayu Empire? Even Blood Guanine couldn't help but mutter, "Isn't this too backward?" Not only was it as slow as a snail, but the entire fallen star was rumbling loudly and extremely noisy. It was difficult to even rest quietly for a while, let alone meditate and train. Brother Suyu, I heard that you once translated hundreds of books of the different races' languages in the Jinshin Seas. Are there not a few races of a higher level among the different races? Wouldn't it save more time to use their control methods? Hearing this, Empress Ziwei was slightly surprised. Hundreds of books of the different races' languages? Didn't that mean that Suyu was proficient in hundreds of the different races' languages? She felt incredulous. She had never heard of anyone in the Constellation Ocean being proficient in so many languages of the different races' civilizations. Immediately, she furrowed her brows. Su, are you doing this on purpose? If you're proficient in so many languages, why didn't you choose a better control method? You deliberately chose the human race's language. Are you trying to torture us to death? Suyu shrugged. Yes, so what? Empress Ziwei was so angry that her nose was crooked. She stood up abruptly, feeling the urge to strangle Suyu to death. But remembering that he had a handle on her, she sat down angrily. Regardless of their complaints, Suyu slowly and methodically advanced through the desolate void. After traveling for half a month, the group looked at the map. We've only traveled a tenth of the distance. Empress Ziwei pinched the jade talisman and stared at Suyu in annoyance. Thanks to you. If I were the one controlling it, we would have traveled at least half the distance by now. The merciless Saber's face was even more sullen. He wanted nothing more than to stomp Suyu into the ground so that he wouldn't have to suffer this humiliation. Suyu closed his eyes and calmly said, "There's no hurry." The chief cabinet master did not specify a time limit. He must have considered the dangers along the way and hoped that we would proceed with caution and not rush things. Empress Ziwei's face was cold. What dangers can there be in the void? The real danger is the gate of great void. Rumble. A soft rumble suddenly came from their side. Everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they immediately looked to the side. They saw a meteorite wrapped in flames, traveling through the void at lightning speed. The meteorite almost brushed past Suyu and the others, stirring up a strong gust of wind. Coupled with the fact that the human race's control technique was too backward, the meteorite was exceptionally slow. It did not manage to dodge in time and was blown off course by the strong gust of wind. The meteorite had no intention of stopping. It continued on its way, but it seemed to have noticed something. It gradually slowed down and turned around nimbly, slowly approaching Suyu and the others. Several handsome young men stood on the meteorite, their robes fluttering in the wind. All of them were extraordinarily handsome and had a noble air about them. However, the evil energy on them could not be concealed. Inferior control technique? You are humans, aren't you? As the meteorite approached, the young man in the center sized up Suyu with a scrutinizing gaze. Suyu said calmly, "Did you come back to apologize?" He did not believe that they had not noticed Suyu and the other's meteorite just now. With the agility of their control of the meteorite, they could have easily avoided the dangerous situation of brushing past them. However, they had still done so. Apologize? The man in the center sneered. A resident of a 2-star civilization apologizing to a barbarian who is not even a star civilization? Little savage, you think too much. 2-star civilization? Not the Dayu Empire, but a resident of another civilization. It's none of your business. Get lost. The man in the center snorted, then turned his gaze to Empress Ziwei and Shui Guanyin. These two barbarian women are not bad looking. Come, be our cauldrons, and we'll give you a lift. Barbarian women? So you looked at the 4 people on the meteorite. The strongest was the Golden Overlord who had spoken. You should be at the peak of the Golden Overlord level. The other 3 were also at the level of the Golden Overlord, but compared to this person, they were much weaker. Suyu sighed, a hint of pity on his face. Barbarian women? Who are you talking about? Empress Ziwei laughed angrily. First, the meteorite collided with them. Then he called her a barbarian woman, and he even asked her to be his cauldron. That was fine, but his tone was as if he was giving her face by asking her to be his cauldron. Chapter 17:25. Oh, quite a temper. The young man in the room mocked. It's only interesting when a fierce horse is tamed. Schwa. He controlled the meteorite and connected it with Su Yu's meteorite. Then he stepped on the connecting point and landed on Su Yu and the other's meteorites. Barbarian girl, if I don't take you in today, I'll write my surname backwards. The young man in the room said arrogantly. Shui Guanyin said blankly, What's your surname? King. The youth in the room said. Blood Guanyin pursed her lips. King of the tortoises? That's right. Wang is in Wang Ba. The young man reacted and said angrily, Barbarian woman, I'll take you in as well. Blood Guanyin muttered, How cunning. Even if the king is written upside down, isn't he still a king? Courting death. The youth surnamed Wang shouted angrily, brazenly taking action. 8-armed Yama. The youth surnamed Wang suddenly made his move. 8 dark and heavy illusory arms appeared behind him and slapped toward the Blood Guanyin. Extreme Ice Feast. Empress Ziwei was the one who had attacked. Although the two women didn't see eye to eye with each other, the man surnamed Wang was too loathsome, so they naturally shared a common enemy. Crack. The youth surnamed Wang's 8-armed phantom froze in an instant. His entire body was covered in frost, and his entire face was stiff. This scene infuriated the people who came with him. How dare you? How dare you be so rude to our joyous union, sacred ruins, young master? Swish, swish, swish. The 3 of them scuttled on his Su Yu and the other's meteorite. What responded to them was the Blood Guanyin snorting in disgust. The 9 children are of one heart. 9 clones that were exactly the same as her surged out. It was 9 against 3, and it was a battle of the same level. The result was obvious. After a few breaths of time, all 4 of them, including the man surnamed Wang, were tossed into a corner, and all of them had swollen faces like pigs. They were utterly wasted, and they didn't seem handsome and noble at all. Empress Ziwei harumphed coldly. You have the face to ask me to become your cauldron with such meager abilities? A bunch of trash who aren't even qualified to lick this empress' shoes. Blood Guanyin's gaze turned slightly cold. She put her palms together and released a serene and tranquil state, saying, It's better to purify you and send you on your way so that you don't harm others. These were clearly cruel words to kill, but when they came out of her mouth, they sounded like a compassionate Buddha who delivered all living things from suffering. She looked weak, but in reality, she was decisive. Let's go. The youth surnamed Wang suddenly crushed an extremely powerful talisman, shaking off the Blood Guanyin's artistic conception. He also shattered the ice covering his body and rushed back to his meteorite. The other 3 also ran back. As soon as he returned, the young man surnamed Wang immediately urged Meteor to fly away, increasing the distance between them. At this moment, he finally stopped with resentment and said angrily, Barbarian woman, just you wait. My joyous union's sacred ruins will never let you off. Empress Ziwei glared at Su Yu in annoyance. Don't you need to use a more advanced manipulation technique to catch up to them? Blood Guanyin was also impatient. She wanted to chase after them and destroy them. They really did not want to be targeted by a 2-star civilization. However, at this moment, an incomparably huge gray palm suddenly slapped down from the horizon and grabbed hold of Wang's meteor. Su Yu's eyelids twitched. Divine warriors of heaven and earth. Empress Ziwei and Shui Guanyin's expression stiffened, and fear appeared in their eyes. How could a divine monarch of heaven and earth appear here? The heartless saber monarch swallowed his saliva, and his complexion turned green. Haha, I've finally caught a decent race. A magnificent voice came from the horizon. A meteorite almost instantaneously teleported over, and a creature covered in pitch-black scales emerged from it with its hands clasped behind its back. It looked like a dragon, but not a dragon, but it had some of the charm of a dragon. It was a flood dragon, the emperor of the flood dragon race. The youth surnamed Wang turned pale with shock. Senior, I am the young master of the joyous union, sacred ruins. If I have offended you, please show mercy. I have not offended you. but I am crafting a supreme treasure that can escape into nothingness. I need some races that are good at manipulating meteorites. Your manipulation technique is above average and barely meets my requirements. So, I will reluctantly lend you your soul." Then, the giant gray palm clenched, and the entire meteorite was crushed. Apart from the youth surnamed Wang, the other 3 youths were crushed, and their souls did not escape. The youth surnamed Wang's body was crushed, and his soul was captured by the giant gray palm and brought back. The Flood Dragon Emperor opened his mouth and sucked, swallowing the youth surnamed Wang's soul into his stomach. The horrifying scene played out before their eyes, and Empress Ziwei and the other 2 were terrified. Their expressions were grave, and they did not dare to move, as if they were waiting for the judgment of the divine warrior of heaven and earth. The Flood Dragon Emperor sucked away the soul, then glanced at the meteorite Su Yu and the others were on. The most inferior method of manipulating meteorites, shaking his head, the Flood Dragon Emperor did not even bother to pay them any attention. He simply rode the meteorite away with his hands clasped behind his back. Whoosh! The heartless saber monarch sat paralyzed on the ground, his face still pale. He breathed heavily, and beads of sweat the size of beans flowed down his forehead. Thinking back to the scene just now, the heartless saber monarch's heart thumped wildly. That was close. They had barely escaped with their lives. Shui Guanyin patted her young chest and said with lingering fear, "That was too terrifying. We actually encountered the divine warrior of heaven and earth in such a vast void, and the most savage flood dragon race at that." Even Empress Ziwei felt a lingering fear. Thankfully, we are like ants in his eyes. He doesn't even spare a glance for us. Otherwise, everyone's hearts trembled as they thought about it. Brother Suyu, aren't you afraid?" Shui Guanyin looked at Suyu in surprise. She saw that Suyu's expression was calm and did not show much panic. Suyu calmly said, "His target is not us. What is there to worry about?" Shui Guanyin recalled. That's right. What the Flood Dragon Emperor wanted was the superior method of manipulating meteorites. Our method was the most inferior, and that's why we managed to escape. Hearing that, Empress Ziwei's expression changed. It was precisely because Suyu had insisted on being cautious and would rather spend more time than expose himself that the Flood Dragon Emperor had let them go. As she thought of this, Empress Ziwei secretly praised her good luck. She couldn't help but size up Suyu from the corner of her eye as she thought to herself, although this guy is evil to the core and calculative, and even despicably threatened me with that kind of image. In terms of training, he has his own unique points. In fact, what they did not know was that Suyu was not much better off than them. He was just calm on the surface, because just now, there was an item in Suyu's 9 jade spiritual pearl that had been sealed for a long time. It was intensely responding, as if it had been summoned. Suyu had secretly used all of his divine power to block out that response. Coupled with the fact that the Flood Dragon Emperor was not close, he did not notice the response. Now, that response had broken through the suppression and was leaking out. Fortunately, the Flood Dragon Emperor had gone far away. Otherwise, with the Flood Dragon Emperor's wanton killing nature, wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, Suyu hurriedly dispelled the response. Unexpectedly, a wave of fluctuation appeared silently behind Suyu and Yunxing's back. I thought I had sensed wrongly. I didn't expect it to be true. Suyu turned his head, and his pupils shrank. It was the Flood Dragon Emperor.